Good evening and welcome to today's editions of Freedom Watch. I'm Alfonso Zveyansot of the Liberia Public Radio 10 LPR TV. Stay tuned. It's good to be back here after a couple of days away from this network.
It's the time to come together. Keep Liberia safe forever. So open up your heart and let the unity begin. Love is all we need to make it stand. Let's cultivate one another. Learn to live together as brothers and sisters. Without togetherness, we won't have no peace of mind. Unify and have a peaceful, sweet Liberia. Land of liberty is our home.
Okay, well, folks, we want to welcome all our viewers and listeners across the globe. I'm Alfonso Zienso, right here from the New England Bureau of the Liberia Public Radio and LPR TV. We say thank you for joining us here this evening, this beautiful sunny evening. Been away for almost like a week. Sometimes you have to take a rest. Besides this, we have our own obligation here to do as well. I want to welcome you to today's broadcast. This is your informative news magazine, Freedom Watch, as usual. It's aired right here from the New England Bureau of the Liberia Public Radio and LPR TV. Viewer descriptions is advised. We are about to enter into some painful and consequential happening, taking us from the history of Liberia to see where we are today. Election has come and gone, but we have to take a backtrack of the country from the West African Republic of Liberia. Today, I'm going to be hosting the special guests here, as usual. Our senior analysts and contributors are going to be here with the limited information we know about this new memoir. I understand we're going to be having a conversation. Remember, as a country, 1980, the first military coup in the West African state of the Republic of Liberia took place the early dawn of the mornings when guns sounded in the nation's capital of the Republic of Liberia, Monrovia, with an unknown enlistment in the military to seize state power, taking control of the government of a democratically elected government, the late Warrant Regis Taba. The group called itself the People's Redemption Council, PRC, seized and installed from the West African state of the Republic of Liberia with a democratic elected government led by Dr. Warrant Regis Taba. Early 1980s, guns sounded in the early dawn with an unknown enlistment of the military, then Master Sergeant Samuel Kanyen Doe. Doe was the chairman of a group calling itself People's Redemption Council, PRC. Doe was the chairman. A promise to complete and overhaul Liberia's society and economic political systems and replace it with a complete previous regime. Those were some of the basic reasons of which then the president of the Republic of Liberia, Samuel Doe, and rampant corruption. PRC originally had a founding members of 17, and as time progresses, that number extended to 28. That's the People's Redemption Council. Well, along the way, the PRC, when they took over, I remember there was executions of senior government officials who then were serving the Tobot administration. Besides international community and international media guru, following the history of Liberia, since then Liberia itself has been deepened into political crisis. But one person who took heed and followed the trend of the Liberian society is a journalist, a Liberian journalist based here in the U.S. He currently there's a new memoir, I understand, here, journalist Emmanuel Abalo, in a new book, CHAOOS. It's quite interesting and fascinating. Many have their own interpretation with respect to the coup of 1980, when Liberians took to the street and began to dance, native woman-born soldier. And this has been the patterns of dancing to the rhythms of things that happen in society, in our country. And even up to this point in time, it is happening. And so we are here this evening. We're going to be having this discussion here. But again, so we told you, viewer descriptions is advised. But remember, when the coup took place, Sonia's government officials were executed publicly on national televisions, went viral and went all over the world. Let's take a look at some of those people that was victims following the military took over in Liberia. Frank Taba is the brother of then the late president Warrant Taba. At the time, he was president of the Senate. Sir Bright was a minister of planning and economic affairs. C. Cesar Dennis was then the chief diplomat that was the minister of foreign affairs of the Republic of Liberia. James A. Pierre, former chief justice of Liberia. Richard A. Henrys, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Frank Stewart, Director of the Budget, John Sherman, Minister of Commerce, Clarence Parker, Chairman of the National Investment Commission. Well, that's how the story of Liberia, the 1980s, began. But a journalist who has also followed the story has his own narrative, and we will be taking the conversations right here. I will give you a little bit of hint, and right there, my guest is already standing by in the studio to permit me. I'm going to be taking my seat because we are about to enter into a consequential and some painful conversation. And I'm interested. And to let you know, in fact, this book, he will unveil that. That's the first time I believe we're going to be discussing that here on the Liberia Public Radio. It's already available on the market, very cheap. You can buy it, go and read. I'll start it. It's very interesting. I have never been able to conclude here. He who wrote the book will give us the perfect interpretation. But let's just place this here to give you a sense of where we came from and where we're going to be right now. I'm Alfonso Zienso. Stay tuned. I will be right back. Let me get this going here to right away, and we will get this on the way as soon as we get this here.
Founded as a resting ground for free slaves in 1822 by U.S. colonization societies, Liberia became a drop-off center for African slaves from America, as well as a place for merchant business for the British American slave owners. Liberia served primarily as a transitional resting ground until the early 1960s, when African colonies gained their independence from the British and the French. After this, the number of refugees skyrocketed across the continent, reaching the low millions by 1980. With Western countries such as Liberia having the highest numbers. These refugees were faced with a series of social, economic, and political barriers because they were not represented or protected under the law and were persecuted for being racially, religiously, linguistically, and socially different from natives. The refugee crisis would represent the extent of political instability in Western Africa at that time. The people were becoming victims of their own political system, subjected to a corrupt government and robbed of a voice. Once Liberia received her independence from the British in 1870, all of the political power was assumed by the upper class, known as the Americo-Liberians. These were educated native citizens who were mostly composed of individual families who for more than a century dictated the country's wealth and politics. The Americo-Liberians ruled the country under a corrupt, totalitarian system, taking advantage of the lower and middle class and using violence to eliminate any opposition to how they ran the country. One of these families, the Tolberts, led by William Tolbert, assumed total power in order to more directly control the Liberian people. William and his family members assumed power of every political office and became known as the True Whig Party. The True Whigs used totalitarian tactics to mandate every aspect of Liberia, while silencing any and every opposition to their rule and taking advantage of the lower class and the tribal communities in order to promote economic growth. Robbed of their freedom and living in horrific, impoverished conditions, the tribal communities were on the verge of a revolt by 1979. They composed a military coup of over 5,000 people, a mix of tribal, indigenous, and lower-class Liberians, waiting for the opportunity to revolt. This opportunity came in April of 1979, when the Tolbert government increased the price of rice by 50%. With rice being a major source of food, violence broke out across the country. Demonstrators were fired at by police and government officials, who killed hundreds and wounded many more. At this point, the country was on the verge of a total civil war. Before a total war could take place, the people were in need of a public figure to represent their cause and take action. This need was met in 1980 when Samuel Doe rallied a rebel group and started what would be the greatest military coup in Liberian history. Doe came from a small indigenous tribe and eventually dropped out of high school and joined the military. After great success, he left the army in 1979 and joined a rebel group that aimed to overthrow the government.
Okay, this is how we're going to do it now. Let's get the program going. Time is fast spent. My guest is standing by right here. Let's going to bring this here very shortly. We want to welcome our viewers and listeners across the globe. Thank you for being here at this event. I'm Alfonso Zienso of the Liberia Public Radio, NLP. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without much time ado, my guest is standing by right now. I wanted to get this program on the way. He's a journalist. Emmanuel Abalo is a journalist, a Liberian journalist. He's an activist. He holds a master's let me just go here. He's an activist, he's a writer, he holds several international journalism award. He's a fellow at the Paul Harris Fellow of Rotary International. He was Bachelor Science degree from the University of Liberia, that is the Republic of Liberia, to Masters of Science at the Eastern Kentucky University. He's currently based here in the United States. Let me just bring in the son of the soil, veteran journalist Emmanuel Abalo. Okay, let's get this going here. Mr. Abalo, thank you for joining me here this evening, beautiful Sunday evening, here on the Liberia Public Radio. Good evening.
It's nice to be with you, Alfonso.
Okay, if you can just elevate your camera, I want to make sure my viewers get a clear pictures of this guy who's took time to put this sort of book together. All right, there you go. Okay. All right, so let's start on this note. How's the Sunday so far?
We're doing well. We're doing well, staying safe. As you know, we have a global pandemic, and the best we can do is to stay safe and follow the advice of the health professionals. And we also ask our people to exercise caution so that we get through. We're almost at the end of this pandemic with vaccines being rolled out. And so we ask people to continue to be vigilant and to be safe so that we all can get through this pandemic. It's been a rough year.
Okay, been a rough year. As usual, our contributor, they will be in here. They will all help to form part of this conversation. There he is, Professor Ase Zawolo is a senior contributor here to the Liberia Public Radio and LPR TV. Professor, good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
George, let me not seeing your image here. As soon as I get that, I will get it going. Is there anything that I left out in the introductory aspect, Mr. Abalo, before we get this conversation going?
I think you captured everything. I like to be a modest person, and I'm not the type to. But thank you. Thanks for asking.
Okay, all right. George, I'm not still capturing you, so as soon as you get that, we'll go. Okay, folks, again, hopefully my audio is perfect. This is the book here, CHAOOS, Emmanuel D. Abalo. Is that a right book I have here, Mr. Abalo?
Yes, that's the premier copy of the book, CHAOOS.
Thank you so much. Believe me, I've been going through this documentary, this book here. I still find it difficult to comprehend and allow us, please make room for us. It is important for us to know in Liberia, our country, our even West region, to know where we came from, to see where we are now. And some of the causes, whether this was something, does it happen overnight? There are a lot of unknown questions. So we're going to be having a series of conversation with regarding this book here. Okay, let me start first here. CHAOOS, how this title came about?
Thank you, Alfonso, and Professor, I want to say hi to you as well. This literary effort is something that I had been working on for some time, and going through and being a part of the period when there was all of this upheaval in Liberia, and having the good fortune of being able to capture this information for our people, I just wanted to provide a historical analysis of what happened during that period. And living in the developed country and having the opportunity to be able to catalog the events as I remember it from some research from government agencies, from the United States State Department and all of that, I thought it was important that for people who may not have had the fortune or the misfortune of going through the upheaval we had in that country and the major players who were involved and how that has shaped the country Liberia today, I thought it was important to project all of this literary effort and have people understand the facts as they happened back in the 1979 through the mid 80s. It was a chaotic situation at the time. It was rather a chaotic situation. And looking back in hindsight, um, I don't understand how we were able to navigate that perilous period in our history, but we are where we are now. And part of where we are now also has its genesis in the historical period that we went through in 1979 through the mid 1980s.
So I try to figure out here, and you will potentially be the best person to take us much deeper inside this piece, this book here, as a matter of fact. So talk to me here, Mr. Abalo. Let me see. Let me make sure that my microphone here is working. Talk to me here a little bit. There are two schools of thoughts regarding Liberia. The chaos, I believe, here is the reference is relative to the 1988 military junta, correct? Are you there? Okay, just hold on. Let me make a change here. Let me make a quick adjustment here. Folks, just bear with me here a little bit. I will give you an interlude of music, and I will be right with you here. Let me just make a quick adjustment here on something here. I will be right back.
Hallelujah, 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 giving the hallelujah, hallelujah, giving the hallelujah. In the morning when I wake up, in the night when I wake up, I will lift up my body to heaven and give you the highest praise.
All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Let's get this program going. We wanted to make a little bit adjustment here. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, you're coming in clearly.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to make some quick adjustment here. Okay, I believe this kiosk here is taking us back to the early days of the revolutions. Is that where your narrative is driving? Are you there, Mr. Abalo?
I'm sorry, Alfonso, you're breaking up. Please come again.
Yeah, are you hearing me now?
Yes, you're coming in.
Okay, good. I was just asking the title of this book, Chaos. The narrative, is it from the 1988 military coup? Is that where your narrative is beginning?
In totality, in most recent memory of the history of Liberia, the period between 1979 and actually 2005 has been quite a chaotic area. But historically, the period between 1979 and 1985, that pretty much laid the groundwork for a lot of the chaotic undertones that we have in the country. Now, mind you, Liberia is a country that became a sovereign state way back in 1847 as a result of free slaves wanting to escape the kind of oppression that they were having in the United States, and they kind of out of nothing settled in West Africa, and then so when you look back historically, the genesis, the birth of Liberia has been quite a flawed exercise, and I'm working on a second piece of literature, and with that hindsight, I can tell you that all through the history of Liberia, from 1847 through now, The period of 1979 to 1985 was quite a historic upheaval, violence, taking over and shocking the system. So, yeah, between 1979 and 1985, we, as people of this generation, we experienced that. We've never seen anything like that before. We were used to relative stability, but I can tell you that over 170 plus years, Liberia, because of the way it was birthed, has been put on a trajectory to experience the kind of upheavals that it has been witnessing, and we have not sat to correct those issues that has launched us into the kinds of problems that we have. We're still trying to find a way to live as a people. And unless we begin to read history, our people begin to read exactly and understand how we got to where we are, part of that effort being reading this book, I think that we'll continue to make the same mistakes as a country and as a people. That is pretty much, in a nutshell, why I, named this book CHAOOS.
Yeah. So, Mr. Abalo, how did you go through the sampling process, and what were some of the views, opinion? Was that something you talked to ordinary Liberian, far and near, and other places with respect to their view? Is that how it was based? Because, and the reason I'm asking this question here, other people saw the coup. There's two versions depending who you talk to, who you speak to. When the 1980 coup took place, they see it as the opening of democracy itself, where a one state or one group of people are being holding up with state power. And but this one here kills. Do you take into consideration of their own opinions or view to factor into this piece of work, literary work that you have done?
Alfonso, the Liberian Society had an opportunity to have people appear before a mechanism that was agreed upon by all of the factions from the 1990, that TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Liberians were able to listen to that. People came and said, some people spoke about why they did what they did. Nobody called the PRC government or the major players from that time to tell us why they did what they did. We never heard from them. They justified what they did by saying, there was rampant corruption and the country was being governed by an elite few, and it was time to right that wrong. We didn't have a TRC for the PRC. We had a TRC for the war in 1990 and subsequent period. So the only way we could get to the kind of information that we needed, people like the United States government, which has all of this information, those are the people who pretty much I relied on to tell me, who were these major players? Why did they do what they did? You as the US government, what was your role in all of this? All of this information, as a result of the Freedom of Information Act I was able to get from the State Department, we're able to see why the major players did what they did, how they were involved, and how we got to the period 1979 through 1985. So it wasn't possible to call these major players from the 1980 to say, why did you execute 13 government officials? Tell us why. We would love to hear that. Perhaps there will be an opportunity. But bear in mind that time is passing us by. A lot of these major players, some have died. Some are, very elderly. Their memory, is failing and all of that. So the only information that we could capture was government documentation, research from universities, from the State Department, from the US government. That's the kind of information we relied on. And for the most part, that was factual information.
Factual information. Speaking to that factuality or what you're talking about here, does it suggest to you that some of these people you are talking to, was this process of the military coup, was it facilitated by the ILOs or by the Western society?
Our society in Liberia, the players in Liberia and the alliance that Liberia, the friendship or the special relationship that Liberia has with the United States, in a way, prepared this research. And I can tell you that the United States knows everything and everyone, all of the major players in Liberia. They keep very good documentation.
Including the
And
military.
so we are not, like the Liberian society and government is not set up to catalog information like that. So a lot of the information you get from the major players will be hearsay, and that hearsay information can be flawed sometimes.
Beside it being chaotic, was there any good versions that you gather, any good aspects from the military, the coup itself? Was there any good thing that you pick up from there?
I think that if you look at in totality, if you look at the situation that obtained at the time in Liberia, something had to change. Even the United States government warned the Talbot administration that there needed to be change. And part of that process was inviting.
What sort of change? I hate to interrupt. When something needed to be changed.
There needed to be the political space needed to be opened. There needed to be economic regeneration. The elite, the people they refer to as the elite, or in the Liberian understanding, the Congo people, they had complete sway over the political and the economic system, the social system. And with the growth in the Liberian population, with more people becoming aware of the political power, with Gabriel Bacchus Matthews and the PPP coming into the scene and raising awareness, it became clear to the United States government that they needed to talk to Talbot and say, look, things are not going well. You need to open this space, and as soon as you're able to do that and invite these people in, give the PPP and those activists some recognition to have them come in and be a part of the government. That was all the grand design that the United States was involved in trying to get Talbot to open up the space, the political space, the economic space. However, the new players who came to town and some of the supporters who were in the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas, they were not prepared for the consequences of pushing this government so far.
That's you're making reference to EULA now?
Yes.
EULA.
EULA at the time.
Is that the same EULA of today?
No, that is not the same EULA of today. The EULA of yesterday, they were highly anti-government. This is how they made their bones. Anti-government. They constantly engage the State Department, and they want to change in the country. And so they supported people who were able to move into Monrovia. Bacchus Matthews being the leader, who was able to go into Monrovia and start what you call good trouble. And so when Bacchus laid the foundation, some of these stalwarts from the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas decided it was time to go back home and help after the coup. But the major players, the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas, they were principally based in the United States, but they were anti, the Liberian government, the Talbot administration, and they had been, anti-government forever. This is how they made their bones, and I think there's some semblance of that today. I see the professor,
he's trying to punch the hairs of the professor, but he will have his day here to rest assured. I'm trying to set the basis here, and of course, they know the rule, and that's what we do here, folks. This is something we need to follow the history of Liberia, where we're from and where we are now. There is a specific point here to align in the book here. It reminds me of your argument of when the Uncle sent U.S. Potentially they were talking to the administration that they need to change. This is why you wrote. Liberia was taken for granted by its allies who perpetuated a geopolitical system of quote, to the benefits of the minority ruling class.
Let me explain that, Alfonso. So Liberia's political system was quite limited. The participation in the Liberian political system was quite limited to the elite few, the people who governed from the formation of the country until 1980. And because the political system, the economic system was that limited and constricted and did not allow mass participation, all of the benefits that Liberia accrued from its alliance with the Western world, including the United States, those benefits were only centered in the same elite who governed the country. And so the the governors of the country, the leaders, they were not farsighted. They were not interested in opening up the political space. It was only good for them. And so the Western world, which was way more advanced than Liberia at the time, saw that all they needed to do was to give token, assistance and public statements that Liberia has a special relationship with whatever, and that was all Liberia needed to hear. For some reason, Liberia was just being used in geopolitical politics, and I can tell you that the the Cold War, Liberia was used in a very, Liberia was used so much because of the Cold War between the Western world and Eastern Europe. And Liberia simply opened up, Roberts Field and say, hey, come in, do whatever, no questions asked. And the United States depended on that. And the United States used that facility for whatever. What did Liberia get out of it? Perpetuating and keeping that elite system in place. That was the contribution of the United States to Liberia, keeping the friends that they had in Liberia in place until about 1980, when they saw that the Cold War was ending, and they said, you know what, this relationship that we have with Liberia, it's possible that something may happen. And they started to get, feelers about discontent. And with Bacchus coming on the scene, with the PPP coming on the scene, and people becoming aware, all of these events overtook the United States. They did not see that this thing would have turned into 1980. They had some inkling that something was happening, but their calculations were off. They were off.
Is it that, Mr. Abalo, is it that the process wasn't guarded? They didn't amend the process along the way? Who slipped? Who fell below the belt to get us to be where we are? Is it from Uncle Sam or we as a Liberian?
At the end of the day, we have to take responsibility as Liberians and learn from the leadership that we had in the past, the kind of leadership we put in place, how we elect people, and all of those things. Obviously, the United States being a powerful, superpower, they took advantage of a weaker nation like Liberia. We have not gotten to the point where we can stand up on our own because we don't have, the wherewithal as a sovereign country to stand up to the United States. We can be co-equals, but that special relationship that we depended on without asking questions kind of did not serve us very well as a country Liberia.
Is the chaos still unfolding today?
Yes, there's still chaos unfolding, but the realities are a little different. And we as a people have not learned a whole lot from our history. We have not done a very good job of unity in the country. Nation building is a continuous struggle.
Yeah, let's do it step by step here for the benefit of our Thai audience. We have not done enough in terms of unity. And this war unity, I've been seeing conferences and conferences. And as of the result of this April coup, we have more than 5 presidents, how you call it, transitional, this echo, that echo. What sort of unity, in your understanding, could have been propagated and to have sustained the peace to get us to baseline? What is the definition of your unity?
I'll give you a good example, a current example. Today, as it obtains, there is a big divide between diaspora Liberians and Liberians in the homeland. And there is a reality that even the children of Liberians in the diaspora want nothing to do with Liberians in the homeland because of the discrimination and the fact that some people in the homeland consider those in the diaspora as people who have not seen the kind of suffering that they have been, experiencing. And when they go home to either do business or be a part of the political system, they're discriminated against. There's also the perception that the people in the diaspora, they look down with disdain on the people back home in the homeland, because people in the diaspora who are considered to be the middle class, they have it all, and they really don't consider people in the homeland to be that sophisticated. We got to work on that. We've not done a good job of working on that. And the kind of leadership we have, the legislative systems, and some constitutional issues, all of those issues we need to address. Our people back home in the leeward counties, we have to do a better job. Our present leaders, not just political leaders, influencers in Liberia, they need to do a better job. We need to be careful about our rhetoric, assertions that we make, public assertions, and how we characterize people in general, because those things feed into this whole idea of you in the diaspora or you Congo men and all of that. So we still have a lot of work to do. I'm afraid that maybe not this generation will accomplish that, but we can get the ball rolling.
Oh, wow. That's and gentlemen, Professor Abalo, Amos George, was senior contributor. I see you're racking, shaking that. We have set the basis of the conversations, and I know exactly where it's going. I don't hesitate, as usual, to come in for us to have a conversation. I think this is a sort of open conversation that we need in our society. Conversations that are conducted with civility to understand where we're coming from, because it seems most people don't know all of these things. They just think this is an overnight stuff and just dash upon us and think they're going to have a quick fix. Who should initiate this unity process? To start with, Mr. Abalo.
Believe it or not, Liberians, you can see from social media, a lot of us are plugged into happenings back home through social media and friends and phone calls that we make and all of that. And we have a lot of influence here in the United States. The middle class, the Liberian middle class, which in a very weird way is out of the country. We have a lot of influence. Our people back home, we can begin to talk to them. We kind of influence pretty much a lot of what happens over there. When statements are made in the diaspora, Liberians back home pay attention. And when political leaders or influencers make statements back home against Liberians in the diaspora don't take too kindly to some of the statements because of the financial clout that these Liberians in the diaspora maintain. And so on both sides of the Atlantic, we have a huge opportunity to begin to bridge that divide. Again, like I said, our rhetoric, our statements, our assertions, how we interact with people, we got to be very sensitive to that because we want to build a unified country. Again, nation building is a continuous struggle. We've been at it since 1847. We've had some missteps. As our generation has an opportunity to make a positive mark on reunifying the country.
I try to wrap it around my hair, and gentlemen, like I said, if you want to come in and then follow clarifications, I don't hesitate to come in. But I try to wrap it around my head. So time has evolved significantly. The world has gone to digital with the proliferations of the social media, live podcasts, entertainers, journalists, commentators. All of these people, their functionality is different. And more or less now, politics is also being inserted into this whole thing here. That people tend to speak to their own base or type people that they pay full attention to. And what is so interesting to me, Mr. Abalo, Liberians are more or less driven in the directions of bad behaviors, not for the most part, but for some. For example, right? Even after the war, President Taylor then, with all of the things that happened, Liberia jumped in the street the same way it happens 1980. It's a native woman born soldier. And people trying to recap the song again. You came apart, you came apart, I will vote for you. And I remember fully well, and what the journalist I said, Liberia is heading in the direction with a sinking vessel with unknown technicians. With such a big and huge society today, how can we easily bridge that gap?
I think that Liberia is a very complex case study. And I think that the problems that we are struggling with today can be traced back to this whole idea that the elite in society thought about, that if you keep people down, if you keep them uneducated, if you keep them unaware, you can continue to rule those people for a very long time. And that is a very, very that is a very, very difficult and hostile mindset for leaders to keep their people unaware and uneducated. And it worked. It worked for over 100 years. It was only the elite and their friends who concentrated power and amenities, water, light in the Monrovia area, and really didn't care about, the rural areas. And a lot of the very bright young people in Liberia had to come to Monrovia to gain access to very good education. And there were token amenities up in the rural area, but they were not on par with what you had in the capital, Monrovia. And so I think that education plays a very key role. And the professor, I hope he will agree with me that we need to begin a whole process, a whole 5-10 year process of identifying education as the key to solving some of these problems. We have a young generation of people who are pretty much hopeless. Yes, between 1980 and now, the largest number of people who ever went to school in that country were the ones who went, they went to school in that period between 1980 and now. And so we have much more awareness. Today, you have all of these universities in Liberia, students are graduating, and then what happens? There's nothing, there's no hope. And so they all want to now become politicians or support people who are in politics so that they can earn a living. That is not governance, the kind of governance that will open up opportunities for our people. We need to begin to give people the opportunity to work towards equity, to decentralize government and amenities, and give people an opportunity. And you can only do that when you have the caliber of political leaders, influencers who can speak to national interest and not personal interest. I think we still lack people who have national interest. It is all about me and my tribe. We need to move away from that.
Up to this point.
Yes, we still have some difficult time dealing with getting people who are patriotic and who are nationalistic in a true sense. Now, populism, where people use this whole rhetoric of the people to get to power, we got to be very careful because it's good. Populism that only bring along you and your friends to power and not benefit the people is fake populism. We got to be careful about that. And we've seen how that can seriously erode governance in the country. The fake populism that we see people using, the people want this, me and my people. And truly, they have no interest in making the lives of these people any better.
Okay, there's a little confused mind that I have here as I'm going through this memoir here. And folks, please, let me put the name of this book here. Librarian, please, you got to get this book here. I have to ask him where they can get it, to get it from the house's mouth. By journalist, he's an author, Emmanuel the Abalo, CHAOOS. Before we go to our next talking point here, where can folks get this book here?
The book is on, and if you just search by the name.
Okay, I think his line is frozen here.
It just got listed on Barnes and Noble, and you can also get it there. There are other places that we're trying to get it listed. There's the electronic copy, and you can also get the hard copy. Unfortunately, because of the difficulty and the
all right, just bear with me. I believe
to get it mailed to Liberia.
Okay, so for those of you in the diaspora here, Barnes and Noble, it's on Amazon, right?
Yes, it's on Amazon.
Okay, all you need to do just type his name, go into the search engine, type his name, Emmanuel Abalo, book title, CHAOOS, and you'll be able to get it. And I think we need to pay attention to this yet. Whether your views or your opinion will be different, but it gives you a sense of direction to the country and some of the things that happens. Let me come back here to, a little bit here. This is where I find it a little bit interesting. And with a confused mind, you are the author of this book, so you will get me into the point. You first alluded that Uncle Sent or the Westerner, they were telling Talbot or the administration at the time to pay attention or to do enough. This is what you wrote. Talbot has begun to make some progress in increasing the participations of indigenous people in the mainstreams of Liberian type political and economic life. Thus, the rising expectations of the indigenous people, in addition to the accumulated frustration at the lopsided distributions of benefits, contributed to Talbot's downfall. What happens in our interim?
So what happened? There were some indigenous people who were in the government, in the military. There were some who were junior ministers or ministers. And when you look back, those people were for token purpose. They were used for a token purpose. Talbot wanted to show their people, wherever they came from in the country, Talbot wanted to show their people. Let's take, for example, Lofa County. If the chief of staff was from Lofa County, Talbot wanted to show the people in Lofa that, hey, I got your son in my government, so I would like you all to support me because I have your son in the government. That was token, recognition of the fact that he has some indigenous people in his government. But that wasn't sufficient because the indigenous people who were in his government didn't have any sway. They didn't have any authority.
So, but
they simply went along to get along. They really didn't have any, they were not high ups in the ruling party, the Truic party. They were only in the government in name, in name only, but they had no actual power. And
in essence, they are not decisions or policy maker. They were just that the mandates just being passed on. Look, you need to get this done, and not enough to sit at the head table to say, hey, this is our side of the story. This is our voice, and you guys need to listen to us. So it means it was not done to authenticity.
The Truic party and the legislature, that's where power was concentrated. That's where power was concentrated in the courts. That's where power was concentrated in Liberia. Talbot controlled all of that with the elite. Now, there's something people always, erroneously refer to Congo people. I think this is a bastardization of the Congo, elite. There were two types of people when it came to the way Liberia was formed. Those who emigrated from here back home, those are the true descendants of slaves who set up Liberia. There were others who were caught on the high sea, did not reach the Western world. Because when slavery was outlawed, these people, when slavery was outlawed, the United States patrolled the Atlantic Ocean, the British patrolled the Atlantic Ocean to interdict, slave traders. So they were able to catch some of these slave traders and their ships, and some of those people who were caught, they were sent back to Liberia. Those are the people who are the Congo people. But in Liberia,
there is a divider house right in between there now.
Exactly. But in Liberia, we call all of the descendants of the slaves Congo people.
Wow. So this sort of divided house, and or probably we can restructure it to say I struggle because it's like, who owns the land? You are not a legitimate son of it. You, in fact, you left halfway. You didn't reach the soil. Why you want? What the heck you want to take this year? So let's look at from your research of this book. I know it took how long it took you to get this book here completed.
I started working on this book back in 2013. And then I got distracted with life and all of that. But I had all of the information. And it's interesting because even as I waited to finish this book, Liberia being an interesting country, our national life continued to evolve. It continues to evolve. It will continue to evolve. Yes, it will continue to evolve. So as you write a book, you have to get a snapshot of history. Or else you continue writing this book until your generation passes on, because Liberia continues to evolve.
Wow. Well, folks, again, please do whatever you can is part of also to celebrate one of our own. There are other people who choose not to do this, but it takes time, resources, energy to go and I talk to people from different backgrounds, gathering information. So you have to compare, contrast, and see which one really fit in the gap to put this together. So go on to Nobles and Bounds, Amazon. How much is it? What's the cost of this book?
This is a very detailed historical book, and it's $26.
26. That's $26. We pay for weddings and baby showers here in the nice end of the weekend. Everything falls apart. But I think this is something. This is something.
Right. The hard copy is $26, and the electronic copy is less than that, $20, I think.
Yeah.
Do you have an audio version of it?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
An audio version of it?
No, not yet. We're working on that.
Okay, there are. Yeah, and like I said, guys,
can I come in?
Yeah, sure. I know.
Can I come in?
But at least you have to get the basis of the conversation here. So, Professor, go ahead.
Yeah. You did a wonderful job, and thanks, Mr. Abalo. Very proud of you. I will definitely purchase the book. You just listening to the things you said, I cannot agree with you more. I just have one little question, just something I'm curious about, but just basically what you said here today, the very same things I've been saying before. We need to have this conversation about our country. We need to have, really serious conversation about our country, how we got here, where we came from, and how we can move forward. We must take into consideration all of the variables, all of the actors and players, and so as to have a very good understanding, and so that we can be able to properly and effectively inform our future generation. I like the fact that you talk about that mindset of keeping the people uneducated and illiterate as a means of dominating them. I cannot agree with that even more, but because that's the fact of the matter. And when you talk about our people being interested in our political system being complex, I agree. But then I want to move the word complex, because I think it's just simple. When you deceive the people for a very long time, and you suppress them and deny them some of the basic things they need, like education, because you think by keeping them illiterate, you will control them. Whenever you have others coming in and creating look what you talk about chaos. It's a simple thing to see that the people who have been marginalized will join in the song. Native woman born soldier, Congo woman born role, or you came a man, you came a power, I will vote for you because you have been suppressing them. Their silence has not been by choice. It's been by the kind of system you built. So I think it's a very simple thing. I don't even think it's complex. I guess in Liberian people, action, reaction, it just continues. And so I agree with you in that direction. Um, and that's something we got to work on. That's something we got to work on. You also talk about lack of opportunity outside of Monrovia or lack of opportunities to certain to the broader structure of Liberians. I think that's also important. Interestingly, the Fifth Stock Foundation he is heavily involved with BWI in the process of getting to Liberia to do some of the things that they wanted to do in Liberia. They kept on reminding the Liberian government and those in the education authorities in Liberia that was long since about the need to open up our educational system to give access to education to the natives so that they could have a better part in their the running of their country. And in fact, I think the first or two attempts to raise funds for the Philstock Foundation failed because the government of Liberia was so bent on restricting access to education to the natives. So it failed. The first two attempts failed. They could not raise the money because there was a strong contention within the US, within New York, that the system, the model that you intend to build will not be sustainable. At some point, it will blow up. And that's just some of the things you are talking about. And those are very important aspects of our history that sometimes we ignore. We do not have a lot of conversations about, so people don't know these things. That even people outside of Liberia were concerned about, the political direction of our country, especially when it came to education and economic and access, economic empowerment of the ordinary people. And so in that line, I'm kind of curious that you choose to write on 1979 to 1985, but you did not, include some of the precipitating events or, into your narratives. So I'm wondering whether your book is more of a narration or is it an analysis? And if it's an analysis, how easy was it for you to analyze just that period, ignoring the time immediately prior to the section you chose?
Thank you, Professor. And first of all, let me agree with your position on how government has become the central entity that has to green light almost everything and anything, including education. I think we need to move away from that. We don't have the structure in place where international bodies and friends of Liberia who want to help can come in and deal directly with a structure on the ground like an NGO or whatever. It has to go through the government. That's a problem we need to fix. But in direct response to your question, first of all, I wasn't. I was still, a child in the Tupman Talbot area. All right, I became an actual adult late in the Talbot, the late Talbot Tupman era. This book looks at a snapshot. This is a snapshot rather of a particular period, a narrative of what happened. This does not preclude anyone from taking up writing on the period before then or after that. I can only do so much. um, and I have a second book I'm working on now, The Birth of Liberia and the Military. That will be coming up maybe within the next 6 months or so, and it looks at the birth of Liberia and the use of how the military evolved to where it is today. But again, Liberians in the diaspora who have the opportunity, who have, the means of capturing all of this. This is a service that we should be engaging in to help our people. I'm only one person. I'm a journalist. I decided that this is a worthwhile effort, but there's a lot, that other Liberians, influencers, doesn't have to be in government, can do to help, in addressing this issue that we have. And again, I go back to the point you were making about the BWI and institutions, organizations that did come in to try to help. We have to move away from government being the all and green lighting, and then a lot of that is because of the concentration of political power in government. That concentration is not being used for the benefit of people. You have a dominant party at the legislature, and what do they do for the ordinary people? They concentrate all of the power. You have to go to the legislators to okay an investment that you bring in to benefit a community. And if it doesn't clear the legislature, I think it should be the executive branch. If anything, it shouldn't even be government that involved. Doing the administrative paperwork and all of that, yes. If you meet the standard and all of that, then you go ahead. But there's some problem there with getting government to okay and green light everything, because you got to eyeball whoever is in charge, and then there are other things to involve.
Okay, Emmanuel, how you doing?
Yes, Mr. George, it's good to see you.
Yeah, Emmanuel, that's my senior brother. During the war, he brought myself a childhood friend during the war. That way they hosted me. So
Right.
he's my brother. So congratulations, Emmanuel. I will get a copy of the book.
Thank you.
You mentioned some things that I wanted to comment, and maybe you can further expand on it. The governor of Togo, when he came, he brought in some indigenous. James Wababi, Joseph Bayou of Grand Bassa County. These were very popular people to the native because they felt that they have become part of the government, but they did not have the power to carry any major development in those areas. So as you said, they were just like a ceremonial people. Then you have the deputy speaker, the late Moses P. Harris, who came from what they call River Gina, but that time used to be Nigeria. They brought in Moses P. Harris as deputy speaker, but he had no power with just ceremonial here that were there, that would say, oh, we have symbolism that we have this person from this area and this person from this area. And time went by, these people had no power to do any major thing in the country. Then we saw that coming in with the PAR, the Progressive Alliance of Liberia, where they came in and started the new trend with Bago Maverick, tried to conscientize people and sensitize the people of the political development in the country, which became very uncomfortable for the ruling establishment at the time. And what we saw then, Turbo, as you read that, Turbo tried to open up. When that tension was mounting, they granted PAR registration as a political institution. But then, as I always say that, because of the suppression and denial of these people, PAR was invited to participate, but they refused. That they wanted election immediately. They did not want to become part of the government at that time. What they wanted to go into election with the central government at the time, which Togo found it very difficult. Now, my question to you, at that time, who were the major players in the Togo government at that time that you will figure that these were the people who were storming black from the country moving forward?
Tolbert, as the president, wielded immense power. He was the face of the government. The legislature came in second. The leadership of the legislature, the speaker, and all of these people, they pretty much supported whatever Talbot wanted. So as much as Talbot wanted to open up the country, he had to go to the ruling party, the True Party, and he had to go to his people in the legislature to say, let's do these things. Now, with the PPP, Bacchus, I can tell you, I don't know, but the kind of information I came across, Bacchus Matthews is a national hero. Bacchus took a lot of risk to go up against the Talbot government. Okay, he and his a few dedicated individuals. He is a he Bacchus understood how the Talbot government was weak from the inside, and he used that to confront them. And I can tell you that we are where we are today. Multi-party democracy is where it is today because of a judge. There was one judge when the time came for Bacchus to register his party. Had it not been for, I believe it was Judge Wadsworth, this lady at the circuit court, they had decided that they were going to ban the PPP and all of that, and she put her foot down and said, no, these people, these people have done nothing. They're following the law, and so I'm going to allow them to get registered. Those are the kinds of national figures and players, people of clear conscience and strength of character that we need, who will look at the law dispassionately and implement the law. We lacked those people, but this one person, this one judge, was able to stand up to the Talbot government and say, I'm going to allow these people to, and because of that, she felt in disfavor with the Talbot administration. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore, because the multi-party democracy that we enjoy today was because this lady was able, with her strength of character, to stand up to the system and register the PPP. Now, Bacchus being a national hero, I can tell you that he didn't have the kinds of people around him, and they were not prepared for the ultimate consequences of what would happen based on their activism. They lost control of the situation. And he tried during the PRC government to make good on that. But again, when you're dealing with soldiers who are erratic and have no idea how governance works other than through military orders and decrees, it becomes difficult to make an impact.
Yeah, let me just do it, guys, and you can come in. I was listening here. You said Bacchus, Matthews, he was a national hero, but he didn't. They didn't know how they was unable to get to the finishing line. But they were also incorporated within the military. Were they given limited power, or? And I remember at the time, full well, the Constitution was in suspension. So I mean, the military was enforced, so everything was strictly with the military junta. When you say they were not ready, in what context?
So, Alfonso, here's the scenario, and our people need to understand that the society we live in, we are all interconnected in Liberia, in the Liberian society. Even here, we are connected somehow. People in the military, they know exactly what is happening. They have their own political interests. They may suppress that because they're in uniform, but they have their political interests and all of that. And when Bacchus and his group were arrested by the government, the people in the military were paying attention. Doe and Wesen and General Kuwangba and the rest of them and a few of those guys, they were quite aware, and they had their own sympathy for what Bacchus was doing. Bacchus had no idea that he wasn't having discussion with secret discussion with people in the military. But these guys, they were young people. They understood exactly what was going on. They saw their condition in the barracks. They saw the kinds of lifestyle that the elite had. And they were like, why are we, sleeping in under the rain and all of that to take care of these people, these legislators and all of that. And, we're not even making $100, salary. This has to be unjust. And so they were paying attention. So with all of this upheaval, political upheaval, and backers pressuring the Talbot government, that was the breeding ground for people to begin to say, you know what, we got to take action. Unfortunately, the people who took action were not people who were grounded in governance or understood the political complexity of Liberia, and they lost control of that situation. And our people, not being that aware of what they were dealing with, supported the execution of, one sector of the Liberian, society. And that proclivity to violence, in addition to the way the country was birthed, has affected us today, and it has traumatized us, and we need to do better. That is the reason why our people need to understand when they go to elections, they need to vet candidates, and we all need to stand up to people who make vitriolic statements, people who make divisive statements, and let them know that this is not us. We don't want to go back to where we need to be a better people.
Do you think, Mr. Abalo, can we practicalize that today in this sort of volatile, uh, desperate process that we are in? People sit and say anything they want to say it, and you have people on the other side cheering these people out because it amuses them. It is to their taste. It plays to their base. It kind of energizes them. So it makes them to get that sort of a popularity. Does anybody have the courage to question these people, even after 4, 5, 6 years? Because what has happened, the victim has become the victor, and the victor is becoming the victim because these same very people, you made a reference, and that's quite true. The TRC went, there was nobody called from the PRC side to come for some sort of explanation. There will come a time too, people who also have been making some of these statements that have caused chaos in the society, they will be vindicated. They will say, well, they were doing it in the interest of the very people, and potentially the very Liberian will to rise against whatever action that will be taken by the law. So how can you navigate through the sort of barrel?
So Alfonso and my colleagues here, we live in a very sophisticated society here in the West. And you all know that, and you see it all the time. If somebody makes a statement or discriminates against a certain group of people, whether it's women, whether it's the gay people, whether it's Black people, the totality of the society comes together with one voice. Influential people, politicians, we expect the White House to take, a stand and say, no, this is not who we are, and we condemn such statements. I don't want our people to think that this is not something that they can be a part of. Our people need to understand that when somebody or an institution, comes up with something that is divisive, that is discriminatory, we need to stand as a people, not partisans. We need to stand as a people. Even if this is your party in office, you need to stand up. You have the strength of character and courage to say to your leaders, no, I do not accept what you said. I do not accept what you did because it impacts me. This is not who we are. So we need to continue. We need to now begin to operate like that as a people, so that we stand up to those things that divide us. Those things are still there. Common example, there are still people who in Liberia, who in government, who make public statements and refer to tribes. Or the Fulani, the Jalo say, Basa people say. Those are the kinds of little things that divide us. Let's begin taking stand against stuff like that, those kinds of rhetoric, and stand up to divisive and vitriolic and violent, rhetoric that divide our people, because we got two parties in Liberia, believe it or not. We got a military party and you got the civilians. Those people, they pay attention, they know what's going on. And we don't want any more problems in that place.
Are you saying it's existent today, literally?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Are you saying that is in existence today, literally? The military and
We've done a good job. The military under General Johnson, Prince Johnson, has done a good job of keeping the military out of active politics. They are doing a good job so far. Since he became, the chief of staff, he's done a pretty good job being a very sober and a very focused person, keeping the military out of politics. And that's what we want. But let us not provoke situations and individuals who will begin to think otherwise. I've heard people on social media calling on General Johnson to intervene in the situation in Liberia. I mean, how can we allow such statements to be made and there's no outcry from influential people, from the church? How can we allow that? This is not something that we should be silent about. We should all stand up and condemn such statements. And again, I applaud General Johnson and the military for being disciplined. We've come a long way, and hopefully, the new book I'm working on will, shed some light on how the military got to where it is today, and the strides that the new military, in this period, is working on cleaning up their image, and we need to support them.
Okay, Mr.
Okay.
Abalo, hold on, Mr. Abalo. Let me just hold here. Let me just break in these two gentlemen here. Both of them, there's always a divided house here, and that's okay. That's part of the civil conversation that we can keep here. Because when you were talking about General Johnson, who is now the current chief of staff, doing a very good job keeping the military out of government, performing their constitutional duties and responsibility, only when there is a foreign invasion or something, that's where the military kicks in. And I think that's kind of hit the spot of Professor Zalo, who support this government here. Let me bend my wagon to Amos George. Pa George, are you there?
Yeah.
Do you agree with the assertions of Mr. Abalo?
Oh, to some level, because I think was some part this year, General Johnson made some outrageous statement in Liberia. I think
not to give credit to whom it is due. So
no, that's what I'm saying. No, listen,
what is the gravity of that level? Yeah, put on the scale for me, yeah, then you can proceed.
Okay, no. If I put on the scale, I would get the armed forces 90%.
Okay, go ahead.
90%. Now, when Ellen Johnson said he was leaving office, I think she was asked what was one of the greatest mistakes she made, and she spoke about unifying the country. That she did not do good work of unifying the country. And you mentioned the same thing. Let's look at the war and economic crime code that many of us, especially people in the diaspora, continue to push forward and asking for it in order to bring total reconciliation in the country. We are asking that during this period, Liberian people mortgage the country feature. Then moreover, there were massive killing by people. Total disregard for the murder code of justice. Nothing was considered. They were doing it on a scale they failed. And many times Liberians ask some of us why we don't want to forgive these people. And as we speak about national leaders, you see someone, a key player in the revolution of removing Dole, come out and say, look, I did not commit any atrocity. I did not commit any atrocity. He tells people straight up in their faces. And at the same time, you got national government, people from the side of the government come out and say, look, I did not promise you people this. I didn't tell you people I want a war crime code. So now, if we are speaking of bringing unity to Liberia, and you hear the words coming from people who are in government, key players who are supposed to set the pace of unifying the country, and you hear the people speaking like this, what that tells you the future of Liberia?
So, Abalo campaign here, I think my question here was that Mr. Abalo made a specific instance with respect to the military in the country now as compared in the past. Though from a military transition to a constituted elected government, but we could still see the influence that military that kept inserting themselves into the political process. And he, as a journalist, he has done a lot following up, and he's been very equivocal here to say that the military, General Johnson, is doing well. And you say to a little percent, 90%. So I want you to dwell on that 10% that is left. Where is he falling below the belt?
It was the utterance he made. I think there was some issue, and he came out and he said something which was very outrageous. I think if you check social media, I can't just remember. Everybody was out there, and we were seeing that the murderer is doing a good job to stay out of the politics, so they should keep that line. But when he, the general, starts getting into politics, then of course the probability of the murder getting involved again.
Okay.
Will be very high.
Mr. Abalo will respond, but let me just bring in Professor Zawlo here to try to buzz through his mind here to see it. Look, Professor, is it the same sort of politics of the divided politics in Liberia? Whatever that is in favor of the government will support that initiative. Whatever that is that is favor or that is not to the political taste of the opposition, so they would tend to bend that work on. Is that what we're seeing happening here again this evening?
No. There's no person that is perfect, and everyone will have the moment that they might stray from being the kind of person they are. Also, people may have their disagreements with certain aspects of people performance. So it's understandable that Mr. George sees Mr. Abalo's appraisal of General Johnson a little bit differently. But I wanted to go back to some of the things that were said by Mr. Abalo, and also a few of those things that were commented on by Mr. George. First of all, let me begin by saying here that as a person, I oppose the death penalty. And that's not a position I came to easily. For most part of my life, I supported, the death penalty. And having said that, I also want to say today, quickly, before lest I be misconstrued, I feel the pains of the families of those 13 former government officials who were executed. I think it was April 22nd or 23rd, 1980. I understand their pain. And I understand why they feel the way they felt. But then, I want to be always careful when we say that, we present arguments in a way that tend to encourage people to ignore the facts of history for the so-called common good of the people, to promote peace and reconciliation. In that line, I want to talk about the events that precipitated the April 12th coup. I want to talk about things like the hot tax. I want to talk about the desecration of the shrines of the indigenous people of Liberia by the American Liberian. I also want to talk about one very common, event that occurred in Liberia. I'm sure Mr. Abalo, Mr. George will recall the issue of Edward Berry and the whole case that went to the Supreme, the case before the court, and how the case was adjudicated. Those were painful moments for families also. The family of Edward Berry, who saw that their relative was killed in cold blood, and that the killers, the murderers, went free. They too, I appreciate and understand their pain. Now, when we take a solemn oath to serve the people in government, we take that oath to serve all people, every citizen of the country, and not a particular group of individuals, or not any one particular group of foreigners who come to our country. So we consider what transpired with that Edward Berry case, and we consider the massive misappropriation of the resources of the country. You take, for example, mine people in the Senequale Yekepa area. who had to endure all the environmental disasters and burdens and pollution. Yet, the main road to the mountains that made millions for the country was never paid. The life of the people in those surrounding areas remained to be difficult. I'm made to wonder what are those acts of government did not rise to the level of treason and sedition that may have merited some strong court action, some verdict, some punishment for those who perpetrated those acts. So it'll be interesting to hear Mr. Abalo's take on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the issue about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Liberian people are quite vocal when it came to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The late Chief Kafumba Kone laid it up clean and clear. The overwhelming view of the ordinary Liberians was they wanted restorative justice. They wanted the erection of the instruments and structures of government that would prevent a return to the events that caused the 1989 uprising. They were not too keen on a war crimes court. They wanted a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The finding of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission does not prohibit, does not prevent the international community from taking actions against individuals who were designated as people who committed huge atrocities against mankind. So those things can be accomplished in the absence of a war crimes court. As in the case, it can be accomplished. And I'm reminded of an issue about Ratko Mladic. I think in the Bosnian Serb leader, wherein he was picked up by, the national police or whatever the case is, and he was brought to justice. So I think when it comes to Liberia, some of the individuals that here people continue to mention their names of, if those people, the international community believes those people, should be brought to justice, the power is still within their heads. But I don't see how, personally, a Truth and Reconciliation Court is a war crimes court is going to promote reconciliation in our country. I think to the contrary, it will cause more chaos, it will bring about more division, because the court will target the people from Grand Jide, it will target the people from Nimba and the Mandingo tribes from across Grand Jide, Nimba, and Lofa, which I think will be unfair to those ethnic groups.
Professor, thank you for the statement, and I appreciate your evolution when it comes to the death penalty. Let me state this. In neighboring Sierra Leone, an active Truth and Reconciliation Commission held people accountable. Sierra Leone did not disintegrate. In order for Liberia to move forward, we need to have people, leaders, with strength of character and courage to help facilitate the ending of impunity. Liberia has not moved on since the war. There's a lot of pain. Our people are divided, and our people do not take our leadership seriously because I think we lack leaders who do not have the strength of character and courage to implement those statutes and laws that benefit and reunite our country. Again, I point you to Sierra Leone. They had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission do its work. People were held accountable. That country has moved on, and it is a model. We should not be afraid to do the unpopular thing or to do the difficult thing. We should, as a country, come together and implement. This is the final report of the TRC. The international community is giving Liberia an opportunity to say, hey, this is your own your own entity that says these things need to happen. Go ahead and do it. If you need help, we will give you that help. We've done it for Sierra Leone, so you go ahead and do it. We've ignored the TRC report, and we are not going to be able to move forward. Today, there's still people who committed these atrocities, these alleged atrocities, who are in leadership. And these people continue to threaten other people, and it is with impunity. There are people who don't think twice about killing others in Liberia because it has happened before and nobody was held accountable. No country can move forward unless we address those things that divided us and brought about violence. That's what I'll say to that.
So,
Yeah, let me just.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat George. Yeah,
I want to comment on Professor Zawo mentioned something about certain group of people will be targeted. But Professor Zawo, let me remind you, every tribe, every group in the country participated in that war. And every tribe almost have people who play a key role in killing people, in massacring people. So someone are saying, look, if you're a general from Bon County and they name you, which I come from, go and face the court or whatever settle or issue they have, go there. If they didn't get you, fine. For me, someone who are not advocating to grab one or two tribes, no. The TRC report mentioned people from Bombay, Kedmore, McGivey, Bon County, Lofa, Grand Gide, Maryland, Sando. They mentioned people who was in those area. And source of those areas, they were there, they saw the oversee the massacre of people from those regions. Someone are saying, if your name is in the TRC report, go there and defend yourself. If the court or whatever vindicate you, fine. Okay. But let me make this clear. I had a 1-year-old child that was burned by a left rebel group. Are you telling me in Masorado? So those generals that came from Masorado, I don't care what tribe they came from, they should not pay no price. We have to set a precedent, because this is why today you see people behave the way they behave in Liberia, because we are not being able to set a precedent, because we all fear that if you go after one tribe, they will get this. It's not the issue of going after 2 or 3 tribes. It's an issue to stop this kind of behavior. War in general has rules, and people who are the head of this institution knew exactly what they were doing. As we speak now, Kusha, he's now been tried in Switzerland. The trial has been going for 2 weeks for crime he committed in Lofa County. They named the General Kusha. He's now been tried in Switzerland for crime he allegedly committed in Switzerland. Now, if the people outside are sending, they are taking a stand to send a message to all that this kind of behavior is not normal. But because we say we want peace at the same time, we should allow people who misbehave or committed atrocity against us because we want peace, and people say, okay, let them go. So what's about me? What's about someone who was down there, whose parent was killed, who was raped? So these are issues we need to bring to the front to discuss it, and we must have leaders who will be willing to take the hard decision.
Okay. Leaders taking hard decision here. Mr. Abalo, you put it really into context. And I had this conversation with the Voice of Sierra Leone VOS online news platform. I always say this here, when you go there, you listen to real national conversation. And that's all we too here at LPR, we really want to do, respect the views and opinions of people. And unfortunately, Liberians, all of us, we do it differently by rewarding our warlords, giving them state and political power. That did not happen in Sierra Leone. So the question here now, you are you talking about there not being the genuine unity here, talking about unity, bringing people together. You have 2 schools of thoughts, calling for war crime by economic crime quote, or I don't know who is not doing enough. Who should take the bull by the horn? We are seeing few folks being picked up in the Western world because of their involvement in the civil crisis in Liberia. I see it as being a selective process where we have some of the real main actors and doers of this whole civil crisis. They are in Liberia. occupying high-profile government, decision makers, policy makers. I can imagine these people putting something in place to prosecute themselves. That's not going to happen. Who should take this bull by the horn?
Alfonso, the situation in Liberia now, we have to hold national leadership, the executive and the three branches of government. The executive and the legislature should take the lead. There is a mechanism in place for the establishment of the War Crimes Court. In fact, the legislature should already have been asking for reports on implementation of the provisions of the final report. They've been derelict in asking for that report. Why? Our people need to ask questions. Our civil society and activists, they need to start asking questions. The president of the country, he needs to take the lead in engaging the legislature to say, this is now an international issue. The United Nations Human Rights Commission, twice, they've asked Liberia to report on the establishment of the War Crimes Court. The international community, the European Union, the Netherlands, the United States government, a lot of the aid that our people should benefit from flows from the establishment and our intention to the international community that we're doing our work regarding the TRC. All of that is not coming. Our national leadership needs to start to pay attention, to be bold, and do what is right. They need to take the lead. The legislature, if they see the executive branch taking the lead, they will fall in line. We need to hold people accountable. Our people need to understand that the people who are holding back progress, national image of this country, are the people that you're voting for. They need to commit publicly to you that when they get to the national legislature, they will do what you ask them to do. They will implement laws that benefit our people, not go there for themselves. The judicial reform needs to happen. It is embarrassing that the United States will have to hold people accountable in Liberia because of a weak judiciary. I make reference to the passport scandal. I make reference to Consular, Vonnie Sherman. The U.S. government now is stepping in. The international community is stepping in to hold people accountable in Liberia. We should be taking the lead in doing that.
Right. So,
I
don't know how you reconcile that yet. Talking about the AFL Chief of Staff, General Prince Johnson. That was the 29 editions of Front Page FPA, Front Page Africa. Liberia AFL Chief of Staff Major General Prince Johnson frowns on inadequate budget support to the security sector. Is that an interference into the politics? Is he the one should be doing that, or the Ministry of National Defense? Who broke the gap?
It's the Ministry of Defense to do that because he's the civilian head of the army. So the logistics, everything falls directly to the minister. And these are some of the things that we have to be careful with the army. When they start speaking like that, then you see what the country direction is trying to take. Because if anything, the chief of staff is supposed to liaise with the Minister of Defense, and the Minister of Defense will pick up with the chief executive, which is the president, to say, "Hey, this is what going on. We need this for the army." But when the chief of staff not speaking like that, then you got to see we got to start. It raises eyebrow.
Okay, let me go to Professor Zabalo. Professor Zabalo?
Yeah, several things I wanted to comment on. One, again, Mr. George, I empathize with you. I feel your pain. I didn't know that happened to your child. It pains me to know that. So sorry for that. And I just want you to understand that I in no way want to dishonor your memory of your child, or do I support the murder of any Liberian. My cousin, in my absence, I wasn't there. My cousin was beheaded in our yard in Kakata. before my young son, my parents, and my other siblings. So I just wanted to say that I know that doesn't compare to having to have seen your child being burned by people. So I do understand that, and I really, really wish it did not have happened. Mr. Abalo, I wanted to just few things. When we say I hear people reference Sierra Leone and how in Sierra Leone they are not rewarding the warlords or the people who may have participated in a dubious part of the Sierra Leone history. President Julius Maada Bio is a person who staged a military coup. He was voted by the Sierra Leoneans as president. I don't know whether that doesn't classify as rewarding somebody who had a hand in the not so pleasant part of that Sierra Leone history. I also want to, when I hear people talk about, holding people accountable and people should not be rewarded, with government positions. I agree. People who had a criminal history should not be rewarded with government's position. But I also believe in the power of the people, the right of the voters to choose who their representatives should be. And in that line, I want to I'm curious in understanding how do we handle the case of Senator Prince Johnson from Nema County, a person who has been a lightning rod, a punch ball for most people in this whole discussion about war crimes court. How do we reconcile the fact that he has repeatedly been elected by the second most populous county in Liberia to represent it? How do you reconcile that?
I think that the issue with Senator Johnson is such that he continues to dominate the politics, the local politics in Nimba County, because on the national level, um, he has not been held to account for his role in the history of Liberia. If Senator Johnson appears before a competent court to answer for war crimes, and all of the facts are disclosed, and he's found not guilty, he has every right to pursue his political ambition and support whoever. But as it stands now, until Senator Johnson can clear his name, the people of Nimba County have to continue to ask him to account for his role. If the people of Nimba County decide that Senator Johnson owes no one an explanation and they will continue to vote for him, that is a choice, that is a decision that they can continue to make. And, so be it. But the international community, the image of Liberia, ordinary Liberians, they will continue to ask those questions. And again, I support what you said, that the power of the people is very important, and I respect the will of the people. If they decide Senator Johnson, regardless of his role in the history of Liberia, they think that he's the person they want to represent him, that is a decision, they will make, and they will have to live with that decision, and I respect that decision.
This is $1 million question here. I've been trying to find solution, possible answer, or some sort of adequate address. But I was privileged to have an interview here with one of the actors who happens to be a member of the lower house of government, now Dr. George Boley, who also, from my own native land of Nigeria, participated in the process with this faction group. But interestingly, Abalo, this is the kind of like a detour into this whole thing here. Dr. Boley, he was in this country. He was here for the long years until his deportation by the U.S. government. But I was surprised, a guy who was involved, what he could do. I do not have all of the evidence in terms of whether he committed crime or people that he was in his command or he was controlling. There's something. Why did the U.S. government, if they are now pressurizing, if they are all calling some government to hold these people accountable, why the guy who was here right before their feet here, New York, why he was in held accountable to that, and he was just deported back home for different reasons. And it has nothing to do with this whole thing we are talking about. So, what is it's kind of bizarre. It's kind of
So,
I think
also the United States government made a strategic decision to book Dr. Bole on immigration charges, not war crimes. Immigration charges.
Yeah, immigration charges. That's what I'm saying. So
Yes. So
why was he pursued on war crime charges?
Mr. Soya,
well, it was easier. It was easier to get a conviction on immigration charges. It was easier. Same thing with the late Tom Wowoyu the same thing. The same thing with the late Tom Wowoyu and the other gentleman who was convicted in Philadelphia. They went after immigration charges, which they were able to prove in court. It's easier. And then the subsequent and the attending, regarding their participation in activities in Liberia, all of that came after the fact. But that was a strategic decision to go after immigration charges and not war crimes.
Let me play into your mind your expertise. I see Professor Zablo laughing. Is it that there are no adequate information or things that they needed in that direction to have prosecuted it? Because they were already here. They have Liberia government. They don't have the authority to say, "Oh, release George Bole" or even these other guys here. But they went strictly to their immigration line. Does that mean that they never have all of the evidence or things really required to prosecute them in that direction? And so it was turned over to immigration papers, snubbing or immigration charges, or what?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. And secondly, they also wanted to respect the will of Liberian people. The Liberian people do not want a war crimes court. And the Liberian people do not want to see its citizens being investigated and being persecuted in foreign countries for things that those foreign countries do not understand fully. We wouldn't persecute American soldiers, or we wouldn't persecute American criminals for actions they committed in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places. And so we got to be careful with that. Let me tell you the story about Dr. Bole. I was called. Let me say it publicly. I was called to testify against Dr. Bole.
To testify?
I was called. It was that was a fact. I was called. I was called to testify against Dr. Bole. It was a witch hunting done by a very powerful American-Liberian lobbying group in the upstate New York area. There's a clear witch hunt was done, and I was interrogated on 2 separate occasions. And when they felt that they were not,
this is a new revelation. Who called you in, Professor?
I was called by 2 different lawyers, attorneys, and I don't remember their name, but the role I play in ULA had my name up there. So, given the fact that ULA has been a very outspoken critic about the war in Liberia, not that a former ULA official or a former ULA official, I don't remember what I was at stake in the member of the union at the time, but they reached out to me and to possibly testify against Dr. Bole, and I refused. First of all, I wasn't in Liberia for most of the war. I wasn't in Liberia. I left Liberia in 1988, never went back there till 1995. So I could not provide those things. But as I listened to them more and I began to delve into the facts, it was clearly a witch hunting done by a very powerful American-Liberian lobbying group in upstate New York. I just wanted to see Dr. Bole disgraced, dishonored, and sent back home. That's what they wanted, and that's what they got.
They succeeded.
Which is unfair. Which is extremely unfair. That's why, when I initially indicated that, look, and Mr. Abalo has his rights to restrict himself to investigating one part of our history. The only thing, and I like the fact that he said it's a narration. So it's not something analytical. It's just a narration of the events as he sees it and based on the facts he got. Because it's very difficult to consider history in isolation of the events prior and the events after. Very difficult to do. You have to put those things into context, because when we talk about war crimes code in Liberia for actions, taken, done between 1989 to 2000, whatever. I might be also interested in having a code that will investigate what transpired in Liberia from 1847 to 1980. I want to know why Benjamin J.K. Anderson went into the People Mountain, the shrines, and desecrated them. I want to understand why was Chief Boswin given so much power and celebrated in history for allegedly boasting about killing old King George on his last visit to the coast to settle a dispute. I want to see the possibility of maybe trying some people posthumously for their action or inaction. Like some of the actions, like the hot tax and the public flogging of chiefs and respected citizens of ours in our villages and towns. I want to see us looking at everything. Then guess what? We open a huge Pandora box and we make our country an investigative nation, a police state, where we just investigating. Whereas we have a choice, and our choice is to move forward, build stronger institutions, provide better education for our young people, so as to preclude the possibility of these kind of events in the future. And I think I go for that, the second choice.
Okay.
Professor Zaro, you talk about.
Let me put a number out here just in case people have few questions for our guests. Like we say, going to be in series. We're not going to keep in here. I will have after Pa George. I will have maybe two more questions to wrap up, and you guys going to stay with me yet. We're going to have Mr. Abalo, but I have one or two things he will address. But go ahead, Pa George.
Yeah, I mean, let me say this, Professor Zaro. In no form or in any form or no manner that I was trying to take your statement to say that you were supporting the killing of my son. No, in no way. I was just saying from that angle that you were speaking, I was just trying to listen, comment on that, but I would never think of you like that. You are a very decent person. But you see, when we talk from 1847 up to 1989, I saw what hot tag did in the rural part of Liberia, because some of the things they did to people. I mean, you could not believe it. They used to set a man down and face the sun. Those things happen because my mother came from the Weada area. So those things happen, and they told her the story. Okay. But then we came to 1980. 13 government officials were put on poll, were executed for alleged corruption, rampant corruption, and what have you. Now, some of us thought from that point, the country was going to change, because that was the aim of getting rid of those people.
All right, something got to hold on. After Pa George, I'll bring you in.
We thought things were going to change, but instead of the very thing that they alleged they executed those people for, it became rampant in the system again. Now, that dragged into 1989. Then the rebel came in. Now, the question that some of wonder, if we don't start from somewhere to hold people accountable that will serve at the time for the future generation, the peace, we all are in for the peace. But if you have someone who allegedly went and caught a president, a certain president, cut his ear live on TV, and this person don't have the audacity even to say, you know what happened? Let me take this time to speak to the Liberian people directly. What happened? It was war. And these are some of the consequences of war. But I want to take this time to say, look, my people, I'm sorry. I take full responsibility. And now you know, yeah.
Okay, let's go that way. I know, Mr. Abalo, before you go, there are a few people on the line here. Let me just bring them in. You guys can take a note. And like I said, we will have to our guests go, and then we can go on it. But let me just go to the phone line here. Okay, callers, I have you guys here. The Liberal Progressive, when I in the town, and that's where you can try to take the by road. I joined the main front of camera here today, so internet, he don't mess around. Hold that, I will bring you in here. Let me start from this number here, 763 number here 9080. Go ahead, caller. What's your name and where you calling from?
My name is Ben, and I'm calling from Minnesota. How are you?
All right. Go ahead quickly, Ben.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit disappointed in the explanation given by the professor. As a person who had a case before the World Crime Court against the Liberian government, it is a little bit disappointing because if we would agree to go by the prof way of solving Liberian problems, can you imagine there will be nobody on this earth that will ever in this world be committed of any crime? Because when anyone commits a crime, the remedy will always be, let's just solve it. Why are people who committed genocide in Germany all those years, why did they still investigate it? I think we need to have a starting point. And this issue about us dragging things behind, if we must go from 1989 to 1992, no, we must have a point. When we start somewhere, and if anybody is not satisfied, they can also push for the other crimes that were committed at some point in time. But this idea about us, where if we start anything that is going to involve everybody, I don't think that's the right way of doing it.
Okay.
I just don't think so.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's keep it to the point. And before we go, the Liberal, do you want to speak now?
Yes, I just, hello, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. Are you afraid of me and Pat George and the professor? That's why you don't want to come on video?
Thank you for inviting me. But as you know, I'm very much tired. Why would I want to be afraid of conservative ideas? These have nothing to do with me. Here's the book before you talking about the progressive of the Republic of Liberia. The man, people are praising us, and I'm going to be afraid of you and Emmanuel George, conservative ideas. Please give me a break. So thank you very much for bringing out some information about what have happened in our country. I just want to say to you here, first of all, I appreciate it, but the sad thing is, I ordered mine set my book, and it's still on the way, and so I am not in a position to actually engage the way I would like to. However, I would like to publicly right now, once my book gets here and I get some team reading out of it, I'd like to invite you on my show as well, so that we can go into the progressive and why you consider to say that they get hold of a lot of stuff. The only question that I have for you, as someone, I used to be one of those young post soldiers of the progressive, and I agree with you that people in the barracks, which I'm quite aware of, were very sympathetic to Marcus Matthew plight, in that Marcus Matthew and the rest of the progressive was talking about that, look what happened. You're not getting the kind of money you're supposed to get, and they believe that. The thing is, I have here in North Dakota, who was literally, he was in the army, of course, was literally crying when they used to flood Marcus Matthew and the rest of the progressive in the barracks. In fact, it was one of those that he died, some of those people that joined the PRC. But the question that I have for you, when you come on my show, hopefully by then, I will have had a little bit of information on the book, and then you and I can go and have some real fruitful discussion. Not that you're not having a fruitful discussion now, but to be in the midst of a conservative group this afternoon.
Oh my goodness. This guy is so ridiculous.
Mr. So let me finish my statement. So the question I have for you, I feel bad for you because you are sitting among conservatives and you are talking about the progressive, which they will not understand, and I feel bad for that. But the question I have for you is, if these people, Marcus Matthew, Dr. Chipote, Dr. All of the PhD you can hold, you can think of progressive formula, Dr. Formula, and the rest of the people, they were brought into the army. And in fact, they were also instrumental in teaching how to govern and the governing system to some of the PRC members. Why would you say then that they didn't have much control? And the last question I have for you, how many of the true progressives that you talked to, and on a very serious note, a few days ago, about maybe 3 or 4 days ago, one of the progressives, and I will call his name, Marcus Don, sent me an email do you know this young man that wrote this book? He said. I said, no, I don't. I will look into it. And in fact, I called Mr. So and I asked Mr. So said, yes, in fact, I'm going to try to invite this young man on my show. So I was just wondering, were you able to interview some of the progressive? Because these are the savior of Liberia. They are progressive liberals like me. Thank you very much. And I'll take
Oh, man. Look, Mikey, come for your Thompson tour, man. Please, come on. You guys to do here. Okay, after the callers, then I'll go back to Mr. Abalo to respond, and then we can have him to leave. I know you got to go to work early. 774 number 7611. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from?
My name is Dan Sudwell. I'm actually calling from Boston now.
Hey, Mr. Deeds, welcome, buddy.
Thank you. So, Professor Zawolo, I really believe you should rethink what you just stated in terms of the TRC report and going way back to talk about investigations. The issue of the war in Liberia was on a very massive scale. I'm not trying to minimize what happened before the war, but it's a crucial point. This must be done. It must be done now. But I got a question, though. It goes to the author, Mr. Abalo. This is a question. I sincerely believe the issue of Liberia having a connection to America, especially now, most recently to both of the West, but most recently to America, where most educated Liberians, I believe we have major problems in Liberia simply because whenever we have a little issue in Liberia, we all run away. I'm equally guilty of this, although I came to this country as a child. But I want to say this: Liberians do not stand to confront their problems. The very people that have the total preparedness to change Liberia in the direction that we so desperately want, they leave every chance they get. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think our connection to America or quick to run to America is harming Liberia more so than it's helping Liberia? Because I sincerely believe it harms us greatly. Because if we all stay home and we truly, I have this belief that I always preach, I believe the American government should take all of us from America, put them on a big ship, and send us back to Liberia. And we will fix the country. I really believe that. You're laughing, but I'm serious about it. Because the very people that have the preparedness to change the country, all we do is talk from afar, and we have no impact on the ground. If the author about it can actually comment on that, we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Okay, 762 number 9950, and those are the number, the last number. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
Yeah. What's your name and where you calling from?
My name is Bobby Henry, calling from Georgia.
Okay, welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Thank you for inviting me on the show again. I have a contribution to make Mr. Amos Joyce. He made a statement that the prisoner should be set within the wartime, which is in 1989. But let's go back to
Make it as brief as possible you can.
Let's go back to what happened in 1980, where he just talking about go EFN caught out and be killed by Prince Johnson. But let's look at the first time we ever see publicly. Some of us we saw it publicly. 1980, that a president or city president was killed by the same regime of Dole. They killed Dole and the bulls about it. So I think if we got to say the precedent, it should set from 1980 up to 1990 and up to this recent time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. 862 number 9537. Go ahead. Call up straight to the point before I go back to my guest. What's your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. So, this is Christine Gay, and I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. I just want to say thank you to the professor. This is something we wanted to know, and as a youth who are coming up, we know how to get the information. So what I really want to know is the professor really thinking, because they're saying this from day after day, and I want to say on this show, I don't get no from the people, I don't get no money in Liberia, but I want the professor to tell me, do we think up to now as to living? Do we still having the issue of Congo and native people, or just ordinary politics that is going in Liberia? Because when I look at it from the other side, I think that certain people who trying to, they have the money, they have the power, they have a lot of things, because I agree as a little bit, but the federal government have been ruling the country throughout the years upon years in that country, and basically people were not able to have the opportunity to do, and they were up to people for the clinical people and all the other stuff and special other things that were going through. But I just want to know up to now, as the government moves, as we seeing the government, Joe, we are government, federal government, whatever government. Is it the same Congo and Native people stay still going on, or is it something different from maybe different political parties, and you know,
Okay.
like those who pushing out the negative message? That's why I want to know why it's still the Congo and Native people. Thank you for the show.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Again, let me go back to my guest, Mr. Abalo. You can keep in here. Mr. Abalo.
Yes.
Okay, there are a lot of things came out here. Let me give you the opportunity to respond, and then I just have two things, and then we can close up before I can bring Joyce and Professor Zawlo for a few minutes before we wrap up. But I know you.
All right. I wanted to specifically respond to two points that were raised by callers. The one, if I understood the caller correctly, he was asking whether this special relationship, I'm just paraphrasing, whether the special relationship Liberia has with the United States is harming Liberia. And I'm going to answer that question this way. What does Liberia bring to the table when we engage with the United States? What are the tangibles that we bring? If we can answer that question, that will crystallize the relationship that we have with the United States. It is not a bad thing that Liberia is within the orbit of the Western world, including the United States. It's not a bad thing because geopolitically, every country has to pursue its interests, whatever that leaning is, whether it's the Western world or the Eastern Bloc, whatever that influence is. A lot of that influence comes from the history of the country and how that country, whether it was through colonialism, in Liberia's instance, we were not officially colonized, but the history and how Liberia started, how Liberia came into being. So in a way, it was a quasi colonial relationship that we have with the United States. But over the 100+ years, what do we bring as a country in that relationship to the United States? We continue to support the United States and its policies when it comes to in international fora, the United Nations and other fora. But what do we bring? What do we offer other than that support? The United States can depend on Liberia for the most part when it comes to voting a certain way. But other than that, what do we bring to the table? We are always asking for assistance. Governance is questionable, and we've not done a good job of developing institutions and systems in the country that we can use as the bargaining chip when we engage with the United States. And so we come from a position of from a weak position as a country when we engage with the United States. And so we have really no opportunity to make demands or to stand up as a sovereign, independent nation on the international community other than to align with the United States. So as much as that relationship is beneficial to Liberians, we now need to begin to build ourselves as a country, institutions, individuals, and prepare to be a sovereign institution, independent institution that can at times stand up on its own 2 feet, regardless of what the consequences are. We're not there yet. There are opportunities for us to work on that. And the second question, I think, statement, the person wanted to find out whether there's still the native Congo divide. Yes, it is still real. Our people still perpetuate that. People in government, people in the private sector, they still perpetuate this divide of the native and the Congo. We need to move away from that. This is 2020.
Okay. Before we let you go, and I will leave you with my guys here. I want you to go a little bit in this line here. on page 21 here, the book here. Some I try to wrap this around my head. And here how it reads. According to unclassified U.S. government documents, the Liberian government officials who contacted the American embassy, including Foreign Minister Dennis, Justice Minister Joseph Chesint, Deputy Minister of National Security Wilfred Clark, and National Security Agency Inspector Idris. Justice Minister Chesint and Deputy Minister Clark had contacted the embassy to obtain additional information on the unfolding situation. It goes further down there, and he went on to say it was unclear as what really Clark wanted. That was the early morning of the coup narrative. They didn't know what was coming.
Yes. They were not aware. Now, don't forget that the coup, on the morning of the coup, this is not something that had ever happened in Liberia. This was a total blow to the state. But let me go back prior to the morning of the coup. Bear in mind that when the United States Embassy started talking to Bacchus, because Bacchus was becoming a major player, and the Americans knew right away that this guy was going to be somebody who they would need to keep an eye on because he's making things happen in the country. He's moving, he's talking, people are following him. He's very articulate. His views are such that they need to know more. When the Americans had a meeting with Bacchus one time, they wanted to get some indication from him on, look, this PPP thing and the way you guys are talking. The Cold War was still active. The Americans were very particular. They did not want Liberia to get out of their orbit. They wanted Liberia to be a part of, their orbit. This Cold War, they couldn't lose Liberia to the Libyan influence or the Soviet Union. So when Bacchus and his group came and they started talking, the Americans were like, you know what, these guys, the way they're talking, we need to find out a little bit more.
In a socialist
Yeah, they wanted to make sure. So Bacchus told them in one of the meetings, he said about the 1979 coup, the 1979 rice riot, rather. When he went to the Americans and said, look, if you guys had told us, the PAL, that this thing was going to end up this way, we would have not had that demonstration. Why didn't you guys tell us this thing was going to go, the other way? Because you guys have all the information in this country, everything, every fly that moves around this country, you guys at the embassy, the Americans, you guys know. Why didn't you tell us? And the Americans said back, look, there's no way we would have known, or would have told you. So they kind of let it go. So what I'm saying is the Americans knew exactly what was happening in the country. On the morning of the coup, when Chessin and Wilfred Clark and Foreign Minister Dennis, called the embassy, they just wanted to find out what was going on. What is happening? We're not sure. And in that confusion, the Americans weren't sure whether these guys wanted asylum or they just wanted information. The Americans themselves were caught by surprise. And so in all of that chaotic situation, the fact of the matter is that they took refuge there for some time, and Foreign Minister Dennis, who were very well liked, made that decision to go out and present himself to the coup makers.
Hold on 1 second. Am I hearing that these guys took refuge at the embassy initially?
Exactly.
And they came back. So was
exactly.
This, Mr. Abalo, this is stunning. Was it in isolation? So the narrative and the talking point out there that this coup, in fact, was facilitated by Uncle Sam, was that a case? Or is it that they wasn't really in control of these folks, these young military leaders?
No, the research did not indicate in any way that the Americans facilitated or were aware of planning of the coup or anything of that sort.
No,
the Americans knew that there was some dissension, something was happening, and with the coup in Ghana with Jerry Rawlings, the Americans were looking at that Jerry Rawlings model. They were saying, you know what? If Jerry Rawlings can pull this off in Ghana, it's
If we
possible
probably
that,
have-
yeah, it's possible that there are some Liberian officers. They identify those officers in the Liberian military. It's in the book.
Yeah.
They paid attention. They said it's possible that these guys in the Liberian military could possibly undertake that Jerry Rawlings model. And that's where they were kind of trying to find out what could possibly happen. Is it possible that they could do this? They were not paying attention to Samuel Doe and General Kouangba. No, they were not. So this caught them by surprise.
Wow. This is we're going to leave it, like I said, we're going to have it into series. I want people to really follow this here. It's quite fascinating. I want them to really go out there to buy this book and for them to read it for themselves. This is your take-home question here. Leaders should take the bull by the horn. The leaders are not doing good. It is unclear. I could be wrong. Liberian politicians are not noted of making definitive statements. They're always driven in the state sort of by political correctness. I heard during the heat of 2017, now the president, Dr. George Weah, I made a commitment with the Liberian people. I'm hoping to get that audio. I've been able to have that, so I can validate that he wanted war crime. Here we have 2023 at the step door. Alexander Cummings, I haven't heard anything about that. I just hear their supporters will want this. But when someone is in the actual game or the decision makings of politics, that's a different thing. All Liberians will have the guts this time to ask the stake actors to say, this is what we want to commit themselves, or will you see, can you forecast and our major political leaders that are cool probably to participate in the 2023, will they come out if this is a decision of a Liberian? Will you see them, will they come up publicly to say, yeah, if elected, this is what I'm going to do? And what could be the repercussions, saying it and what the aftermath of it? Because as I go through this book here, and one good thing you did here, even though I will must say I asked that here, there's a pattern here from one page to another page here. Chaos aftermath of the 1980 coup in Liberia and U.S. engagement with the military junta. So I see here that your direction is shifted towards what actually happened as a result of the coup. Try to narrow down. That's why you try to narrow it here. So, for the guys, man, do you think we're going to make that commitment?
Liberians should hold their leaders, their future leaders, their leaders now and then the leaders in the future to, they should ask for those commitments from their leaders on how they will approach certain issues. I understand that because of prejudicial reasons, sometimes the leaders don't want to box themselves in, but your leadership, your history as a leader and the kinds of ideas that you have should clearly tell the ordinary Liberian the kind of leadership that you're going to provide. Like they say, a good predictor of the future is your past actions. And so we should not shy from asking our leaders to commit to certain things. That is how activism works, and that's how results are obtained in a democratic society. Our people need to start to understand, our young people who are becoming much more politically aware. I applaud them for being, but they need to start to ask those difficult questions and be dispassionate about partisan politics. They need to think beyond partisan politics and think at a national level, and not be afraid to confront their leaders. Especially when they see that leaders are deviating from the commitments that they made.
Okay. Well, so I will go to my guys for the quick 30 seconds, and we will come back there when you go here. Pa Joyce, is there any take-home message for Mr. Abalo before we let him go?
Oh no, I just want to commend Abalo for this work he started. As he said, he continued, and it is a reflection. It should be a reflection of our history, and I think this kind of writing will give an insight to determine what the future of Liberia should look like and will be. So I want to say thank you to him.
Professor?
Yeah. Look, I want to say thank you to Mr. Abalo. I followed him for a very long time, and it was very wonderful experience sitting with him and discussing this issue. I know he's a Liberian who mean well. I just hope and pray that his ideas, will see fruition. And I want to thank him for his scholarly work. It will be on the shelf of the Giddings Polytechnic and my high school in Jakarta, Liberia. And I will make sure that my students read that book, and we'll do a book report on it. And and I will hope maybe if you have the chance in the future, you can even speak to my students in Jakarta, on the book and the history, that part of our history. So thank you very much for your work.
Well, yeah, what are you going to do?
Right.
Just put the internet there to Mr. Barlow. He doesn't need to go there. He can do it right here and provide a lecture.
Exactly.
I'm waiting to see the second book here before you close all your questions, Mr. Barlow. I'm waiting to see the second book with what the detail line is going to be like, and perhaps me being like a free thinker here, I just saying here the chaos aftermath. I also want to see the beneficiary aftermath of the coup. But I know it's a step by step. What's your final message here? And for those of you that are following us here, that is very important. Let me display this book here. This it. Let me just bring myself right here to more visible. That's A Chaos. If you can see A Chaos by Emmanuel D. Abalo, is veteran journalist. It's already out there, Nobles and Bounds. You go on Amazon. You can see that. Buy it, read it, and then you can really make a meaningful impact. Or you have follow-up questions you can ask. Mr. Abalo, what's your closing statement?
Yeah, I certainly want to thank you, Alfonso, for keeping this platform, this torch of journalism. This is new media, and you are doing a good job of informing our people. Our people learn a lot from this platform and the discussion and your guests. Professor Zawolo, as an educator, you're doing a whole lot. You're giving back. It's invaluable what you're doing, helping with education back home in Liberia. Thank you so much, and hopefully your efforts, your sacrifice will pay off for the kinds of students that we want to to raise in our country. And Professor Amos George, I'm sorry, Mr. George, yeah, I hereby confer professorship on you, emeritus. Yeah. But no, Mr. George, I want to thank you also because I followed you on this platform and your engagement with the general community. Liberians are paying attention. Let's be the torch. Let's lead our people. Let's provide this information to them and let them know that there's a better country. Liberia is bigger than all of us, and whatever we do here in the diaspora, whatever we do, no matter in what discipline we find ourselves, journalism, in education, or as a community activist, let that effort benefit our people in Liberia. And again, I thank you, Mr. So, and I look forward to the second discussion on the engagement of the U.S. and Liberia. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
no, next year I'm getting my book. That's my brother book. I got a picture of Nazi. I get the book next week.
I've already ordered it.
Okay, now we are in our neutral zone here. Quickly here, we're going to do a little bit here before wrap. I know a whole week I've been out of this place here. But quickly, 1 minute here. Let me just get you guys take here. What you make up so far, even though you yet to read it, but we went into a little bit conversations, the descriptions of the book, the description, the aftermath of the coup. What you make of it, Professor?
Well, I think
it's very clearly proportional or.
Well, Mr. Abalo is a progressive. He's a person with a liberal perspective, and so I can preempt what I'm going to read in the book. The book will present a not so favorable, narrative of the events that came after the coup, and I don't think he's alone in that direction. There are many other Liberians who will perceive and see things that way. And so, yeah, so that's how I see it. So it's an interesting read. He presents a perspective.
This liberal is calling again. My goodness.
One of the things I wanted to add is that Mr. Abalo, I think he provided one clarity that I think needed to be made. There have been a misconception, again, a false narrative propagated by one group of Liberians who have always doubted the ability of the indigenous people, that the coup could not have been staged by Samuel Doe, a Thomas Wesen, or a Thomas Kwenkwa, because they lacked the sophistication to do it. So it was staged by some white people that came in the building that day, in the mansion, and they were all there, and, you know, this person narrated the stories. So at least his research is pointing to what I've always said. That was a blatant lie. These young, gallant, brave, courageous men changed history, and they should be given the credit for what they did. You know, I do not support some of the excesses, but again, I will forever respect and honor Dr. Samuel Kanyando and those 17 brave men who changed the course of our history, and they changed it for good. They created opportunity. They were the founding fathers of our multi-party democracy, and we need to respect them. That's why. Lastly, I tell you one thing. I don't understand why we don't celebrate April 12th.
That's a different topic, but it's hold on. Let me bring in the liberal here. The guy is afraid to come over here to face me and George, but he get a guts to be calling on the phone here. The liberal.
Mr. Soko, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. On a very serious note, Professor, I think certainly one thing I'm not ready to do. I am a political junkie, but what I refuse to accept is that for our brothers and sisters of the Concord settlement to try to portray this whole whether they call it debacle or whatever they want to call it, as though the people that were involved did not know exactly what was happening. I give you an example of that, Professor. My little brother was involved in this. I mean, just a fair information here. My little brother was involved in it, but that's not what I'm about to talk about. How and why did he get involved? We grew up in Tour Town. Tour Town, it still is. It used to be the chiefdom seat of Boston District. So what they used to do, the health tax that you were talking about, these people used to bring people from all over the district. I mean, the chiefdom, their chiefdom, and bring them to Tour Town to pay $10. And if you don't have $10, these people will put you on your knees on the rock, tie your hand behind your back, and force you to look in the sun. Like I've always said, my mom, forever, she always carried $10 with her. Anytime something like this happened, she would pay that $10. One thing. And my brother saw that. And those are some of the things that encourage the young people to be involved in it, to get themselves involved in this. You know, there was a lot of story. I know what happened, what my brother told me. I know what happened. So, but that's not the issue. The point that I'm trying to make here is this. As long people like Honorable Richard Tugger refuse to bring into whatever that they try to do every April 12, whatever celebration they're trying to do, they have to celebrate the entire Liberians. I tell you what, there was another guy that was killed that night, a crown man, Weibebo, one of the best fighters for Grand Leader country during the war, the Weibebo, his father. He was lieutenant in the Toba Martian, but he wanted to make sure nothing happened to Toba that night. And he grabbed one of, I'm not going to go into detail, but he was killed because of trying to save Toba. Okay? He was buried along with Toba there at that grave. Why is it that Richard Toba and his Congo brothers and sisters ready to celebrate or go to pay tribute to? Why don't they mention that? Does that mean the man, because he's a countryman, that means his knee is not fitting to be mentioned? then they are not serious. And I will all continue to challenge whenever they come on until they recognize what happened. Nobody celebrates violence. None of us approve of it.
Okay.
So to make sure, talk about these things, we be sincere with each other. So I'm not concerned. And now let me just talk about that. Now that I finished talking the serious stuff, let me tell you, Mr. So and
I'm about to turn you off.
No, that's exactly what you do. That's what you do. You're very good at that. That's the sovereignty. You and Mr. George have no place anymore.
We call you today, you are eating and you refuse to talk to us.
Down. Some of the view in the United States gone down. Liberia, the liberals are in control in Liberia. With me. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, with the new song, "They Lie to Me," you guys in control?
What song they lie to me?
Mr. Liar?
You mean the Mr. Liar?
Okay, thank you so much. Pa Josh.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the lesson here? I think the book here, like I said, this book here, everybody should try and get one. And I'm quite sure, Professor, I think this is the beginning of everything. We're going to see different versions. I'm hearing another class of one is coming out by some former other government officials. I can't disclose name now. And now we're going to see more. It could be the flip side, it could be a different version, it could be an upgraded version. They could be their own narrative here. Emmanuel, what you make of it? Just a second, and then we can by 9:30 we should wrap out here. But I want to see it. We'll take to the whole week here that we were seeing on. We're back now. I want to see a big takeaway, and I want to see the professor takeaway. But quickly, I go to the book. 1 minute. What you think? What you make of so far the first day discussion one?
Yeah, the book reveals something that some of us never have an inkling of. Like Professor Zawa mentioned, that people believe that it was white people that went into the mansion and assassinated Turbo, and then brought Doden in. And the book there is just telling us that did not happen. These people took the risk to go into the mansion and did what they did at the time. Do I agree with everything what happened? No, I do not celebrate or endorse the killing of people. But we Liberians, that's why I always say we have to be honest with ourselves. And that is, we know that things happen in the country to indigenous, they call native people. And some of our growing up, we saw a little bit of it. And the typical one was hot tax. I mean, I remember my uncle. I mean, they put rock on the floor and on the ground and tell someone to kneel over and look at the sun. Can you imagine? For 10 or 7-hour business. And so these things, and all the people that participated in the school, they saw these things happen to their parents. And imagine, in Morovia, we were there, we grew up. So you're standing under the rain, money, Frank Tower House, or what is the street name? It's a place right there. And nobody should pass in from Frank Tower House, that lane right there. Nobody. No time you pass there. When you're walking down there, I think you got to get on the other side of the street as child to cross the road, and before you go down, to get on the side of the street. This thing was all happening in Morovia. So when the coup happened, I understand why ordinary people took to the street, because they felt that it was time for liberation. What their parents did experience, it was not time that group was going. So the book here, what it's telling us, I think it gave more room for us to have an honest discussion how to unify the country and how to move forward. That's my take.
Okay. All right. Let's come on here before we wrap out. A lot of things unfolded, man. I end the week here, gentlemen. Who favors? Who is But in a way, Minister Lomi, UG Fagon, that's damn lie. If they think that if they stay on course, I'm trying to find a video here together. But Professor, what you make of the end of week, your party, the group that you support? Do you think they are setting the tone for political recovery, or are they just still not still up for the task?
Well, I think there are a lot of behind the scenes movement, to remedy the situation. We are bringing the data together to come up with a clear understanding of what went wrong. We want to be very scientific in our approach this time, and so I think our party is in a better position than we were in a few weeks ago. I think we have experienced a rude reawakening, and it behooves us to get to the drawing board to tend to the business of the people. And I've seen there been a lot of utterances by different members of the party here and there. We've said it to them. We call for party discipline. We call for respecting of the protocols and measures in place to channel those grievances. And we are working. We're getting back to work. I think clearly the voter spoke. It was very loud and clear. And if we don't understand what the voter said, we'll be the loser come 2023. And so we got to get to work to do it. So that's what I'm here. That's what we are doing behind the scenes. We are engaging one another, and I'm very positive there will be a party convention, and decisions will be made. There will be changes, and the party will be stronger and better. I congratulate the winners. I congratulate the many independent candidates who won. I think the biggest winner in this whole thing is the people of Liberia. Our democracy was reaffirmed, and we can celebrate that. Just before I know Mr. George comes on, I just wanted to, sound out to the people out there that Rodney Chesney is a hate-filled person, and not that anyone is afraid to debate with him, but we will debate in civility. I've told Rodney Chesney I would pay for the time on any air to debate him in Rhode Island. We don't have to come here. I can come to his state, in his city, in his yard, and debate him. But he has to commit to civility, to avoid using of the kind of language he uses. If he has a limitation on dictions, we can help him, to improve his terminology. But we're having a civil discussions here. As you can see, we had a discussion with Mr. Abalo, who we disagree with in some instances. We agree with in some instances. Mr. George and I, we disagree from time to time on issues. But our conversation is civil. And that's what we are calling for. We want a civil discussion. It was the absence of this civil discussion that made 1980 possible. The absence of the absence of a respect of the rights of the people to speak out. The absence of the respect for the rights of people like Edward Berry. The absence of the respect for the uncle of Mr. George. He was black. These are the things that caused this war. Those are the things that brought about 1980. And you cannot address it by being uncivil in your discourse and disrespectful to people. You have blotted up a lot of insults against me from time to time. I've been advised by thousands of people to ignore it. I will continue to do that. Just want to come up with my point, Mr. So I'm sorry for deviating a little bit.
Oh no, we are open here. The only thing we ask people its civility is paramount, because if we can do that, then Liberia itself would not make progress. So there are certain language, there are certain things we all take in. You can disagree with us, but that expression must be done within the context and confines of our own self-guided principles that keeping this network here. So, Pa Joyce.
Yeah.
The guy didn't talk about this song here. I want to play this song here. I don't know whether this song was a leak song or what happened. Let me see here. Let me see what I want to get a little.
For what? I don't know. But Mr. Ryan, you know.
I do. Oh man.
Sure. Rastafari.
Rastafari. Hey, Selassie. Live long, Liberia.
You know I didn't do the thing you say I do. Oh, Mr. Liar Man. Oh, Liar Man, you know. Liar Man, you know.
Liar man, you know. Liar man, you know. But George, you will come. Professor, is that the voice of the president?
What do you think?
Huh?
What do you think?
I'm asking you.
Well, it sounds like the president, and
Is that yes? Is that yes to my question?
It sounds like the president. It sounds like him. I don't know what that's his voice. It sounds like him.
Have you played this song yourself?
Oh yeah, I played it. I listened to it several times. Very entertaining, very entertaining song. I mean, he has
what is the interpretation of that? You the guy went into there are two things coming to mind. I'm wondering whether this was a sort of leak from within the Bearwell, within their own establishment, perhaps things that they anticipated if they are going in their direction. And you'll say a lie, but this is it. Was it a leak or what?
I don't know whether I will. I have some questions about the timing of the release. I don't know where it's a leak. I have questions about the timing. I don't know whether releasing it was even deliberate. And so the questions about what is a leak or so, those are all questions that I would love to find answers to. I haven't been able to find answers to that.
Well, come on, Professor. Don't do this to me. How many days now this song being out?
Yeah, so one of the things when it comes to the president, you got to understand that information from the president don't just
not only necessarily from the president, but from you have folks that are closer to the higher up here. What are they telling you?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no certainty here. There are questions about the timing, and there are questions whether the release was deliberate. So yeah, those are still questions that we need to find answers to. I don't have answers to those questions yet. I can't speak to it. I could just say that in hindsight, I don't think the release of such a song at this moment is the most appropriate thing to do.
Because what I thought on before Pat George to come by with this without no respect to the president, but I'm taking a nationalistic approach here because I am against. I do not hate the president as an individual, but I hate some of the policy, and I do not agree with some of the policy. And part of my talking point always is to help to put a supplement, alternative plan, not just only to critique the government or the oppositions or people that I have this. I have my own view with, and here why? Because. It is very, very much important. This senatorial election, and I strongly want to believe that even though I've not really gotten a hint as to whether it was a leak, but I strongly want to believe from other folks that I run that it was a leak because after such a race, that was a tough battle, and the ruling establishment, the ruling CDC coalition was badly hit. No questions about that. So what I thought would have been the very first thing to come out to go for a sort of political retreat and take a review what happens during the senatorial, where they missed their tone, where there's some sort of misstep, and take a different approach. I didn't see that. It seems to be not a recognition of where you're own for. You did not empathize with it. I thought the president or the CDC hierarchy will come out, look, Liberian people, we haul you. Or the president come out publicly, look, we haul you. Or it's not lost. This is a race. Perhaps what you expected me to do, I didn't do it. But I haul you. Your message here, this vote here today, is directed at me because the president lifted hands of people that he trustfully believe. And here is the good thing. Here is the thing here. It's about gaining control of the Senate. That is very, very much important because that's where the president's agenda comes from. I can tell you right now, Chie is most likely in the coming days, a week after everything here, he will be out of job because if the opposition as these many seats and they manage to get to over 6 or whatever independence on their side, I possibly I see maybe Nyombi Kanga to go there to be one of to go as a pro-tem. And that would be a serious problem for his agenda. And if I don't see that sort of conversation taking place, and for this son to come out, then
I didn't do those things, Mr. Lion. I didn't do those things, Mr. Lion.
I don't know who really the advisors, part of the advisor, but again, it comes down to the politics of Liberia. People always want to appease their leaders; they don't want to be honest with them. Pat Joyce.
Yeah. You
endorse this song?
No, the song was leaked up because the election was on Tuesday. Sunday morning, someone sent a song to me. The person called me and said, "Hey, listen to this song. It just leaked up."
I got it myself. Like, what is this? It said play it.
I think I forwarded it to you. Sunday morning, the person called me from Monrovia and said, "Oh, I sent you a song." I said, "What kind of song you talking about?" He said, "Go there, just go click on when I want to play the song." I'm like, "What is this?" But then, it was a legal song. Let's be honest here. The president never intended after the election to play that song. Someone leaked it from the orbit. And it brings me to this point. If we are saying that we need reconciliation in the country, why would the president go and do the kind of song waiting for the result of the election if it's in the field, then to start playing it to celebrate? Because that was the intent to throw hints at the opposition. Now, if you're saying that people are saying that they want to unify the country, why would the president go and do this kind of recording? CDC today, I heard from today, I saw Nathaniel Mangale try to pull a little spin that they had heard from the Liberian people, and the Liberian people want to divide the government, and they will go back to see they are listening to the people. Now they have to go back to the drawing board to start doing things that the people want them to do. That was Nathaniel Mangale, and Moba Molu spoke the other day. And Tamofala, say a whole lot. But the issue here that I want to ask these people, 3 years, what was the thing of this book for the past three years? Don't you hear from the people in the street? You listen to all the local radio stations. You listen to Facebook. These people call into program. They're telling you how they're feeling. But like President Weah, they're not really understand these people, or they overlook the people. Because that 1% we are talk people here and carry up there to say, "Hey, I'll just leave your hand, you will win." And I'm saying this thing here, Mr. So, celebrity popularity is different from political popularity. President Weah, when he was not in government, he was a different kind of person. But now he had taken on state power in 3 years. People have seen the lapses of President Weah now. So when it comes to sport, yeah, the left President Weah. But now when it comes to making political decisions, it's a different thing. And I don't know, with the advisor around President Weah, I don't know, maybe a professor will help me. You have someone like Charles Bright, Emmanuel Shaw, Archibald Bonner in the mansion. These people are the ears of the president. They see him every day. And you see what coming out of it. I don't know how the CDC going to turn this thing around. And I always say, the economy. The bread and butter issue of Liberians is how to put food into it and how to send the children to school. And if that issue cannot be addressed by any government, they're not going to give you the second chance. Okay. Because what we just explained on the Liberian people, they have been mistreated in the past. So now anybody that comes to power, they want quick result. And on this issue, let me just dive into the opposition a little bit. They have a role to play. But Mr. So, I wanted to say this. the opposition political parties, and this group they call the Rainbow Push Coalition. Look,
11 political parties.
11 political parties, they now win 1 seat in Liberia. What is the purpose of these people saying they have political institution? 11 political parties form a coalition. In a major by-election, they did not win 1 seat. These are people who are just there to take advantage of the Liberian people because they got a few dollars. Go somewhere to form political parties.
I can't wait to bring Dr. Wapo and Reginald Goodrich here.
Yes, and you got these people who cannot win 1 seat, 1% of the vote. They didn't even talk about them. These are the people that are helping to create problems in Liberia, trying to distract Liberians from the main issue. Because now when people call a meeting to talk about anything, they will come and say, whoa, we are part of the political parties. But you cannot win anything. So who are the people you representing?
Okay. All right, guys. I know tomorrow is the first day working day here, so I want to thank you so much. Let me go to Professor Zaulo. Professor, what's your message? We are hearing that proposing conventions or retreat from the CDC is
Yeah.
Will you be on hand to be part of that process?
Well,
will you attend such a conventions or whatever?
Well, yeah, but I've already indicated clearly to people that as soon as I need to make a trip to Monrovia to definitely consult. And so as soon as I can get my coronavirus vaccination in, I will be going to Liberia. So it could be anytime soon. It could be before whatever conference is planned or so. But I think it behooves me at this point to go to Monrovia and have some frank conversations with some of the key actors and make my own suggestions on how we can move forward. I still believe in this movement. I still believe in this transformative future of this movement. I still believe that we can correct the errors and that we can right this ship. I still believe that the Liberian people have a lot of trust and love for President Weah, and I still know that I believe that President Weah has great plans for our country. We inherited a turbulent economic system. One of the things that we ignore, what we thought was that we're invincible. But here's the deal, Mr. George. For a ruling party to win election in Monserrado County, it will require a major shift in the way we run our economy. With that number of people in Monserrado County, with the number of jobless people, with the struggle and challenges that people are going through always, it will be very difficult for a ruling party right in the seat of government to win an election. I think we put too much stock into the elections in Monserrado. I think we should have taken a different approach.
CDC invested heavily into Monserrado and they forgot about these other counties. So as the result, it ended like this.
Yeah, I don't want to take credit to say, but I think even on your show or another show, where initially I began to say that we cannot use the elections in Monserrado as a referendum. But then certainly I began to see that the direction the party was moving in, So we kind of flow with it. But I think it was a very dangerous thing to use Monserrado because we should not have ignored data. It's extremely impossible or difficult for a ruling party to win elections in Monserrado. I think the Sir Joseph election may have.
Do you think the president, I don't want us to start this whole thing all over here tomorrow, I want to find time here. But I think the president needs to get out most often because the very people that trust him, the very people that empower him to be to where he is, I don't think that connection is there with the base. It is time now to go there, to go back. You remember when the security stopped this market woman? So we got him to be where it is. Don't not stop him. We want to talk to the president. And I think it is time now they should open that sort of corridor to know so that the president will know exactly what's happening.
So I will look. If I was in the decision making, I'll present the president to the people. Let me just say,
does it need to be redefined? Or what?
Well, I don't know about redefine, but maybe redefine. Maybe redefine is the right thing we are saying, because I think right now the managers of the president are making him to be the person he's not. This man is a man of the people. You need to release him to his people. I would expect the president to have more press conferences from Jokweta Market, the Kobacho Market. I would expect the president to have more press conferences in Puso Quarter in Kakata. I would expect him to go to Gio Quarter in Kakata. I would expect him to go to the slums
to take the government to the people.
The government to the people and sit down with the people. You know, when this government started, it was a pro-poll. When they talked about the pro-poll initiative, there was one occasion I think the president went to some restaurant or cook shop and said, "I want to see the president visiting ordinary Liberian businesswomen, ordinary Liberian businessmen. I want to see the president engaging parents in their."
There's something tall guy kept bugging my line here.
I want to see the president sitting in the home of an ordinary Liberian family and having dinner, eating the food they eat.
Yeah. Professor, hold on 1 second. Mikey, please come for your Samson. Please come for Samson Tour. Mikey, please come for Samson Tour.
Professor Zara and Amos Joy sitting there, Kumbaya, hold there, president's son and thing. Why won't you guys try to give us something that we will be a little bit happy about this evening? We're going to start work Monday, and you guys over there talking about the record, the music. That has nothing to offer Liberians. This is a CDC flag.
Oh my goodness.
Flag. Why are we going to celebrate a CDC flag? The Liberty Party is in control. What part of it you guys
We party in control?
I said Liberty Party. What do you mean? What you think I'm afraid to say Liberty Party on your show?
They flock you in here.
You know what he wants? You know what he wants?
What make it different?
To bring back hot tax.
You give your vote since 2005 to a particular political party that have nothing to offer you. The president has
something tall.
The man is
and Professor, this guy is a disgrace. He town did not even vote for his candidate. And he sit down here, he run his mouth like Shawawa all day from Sacramento. You want to call it? Bye, I see you. You don't
the
even
man got sick the other day. The man got sick, he couldn't come on the show.
Because you didn't even do well for your candidate. Your town voted 100% against you. Your town rejected you.
Somebody going to win.
Somebody.
Professor, you have the professor on your show, and he's not doing that great tonight because of
oh my goodness. You see, he's turning the wheel. He's turning the wheel now and bringing it to the professor. The professor got the courage to come here and make his position. No, you left from Georgia, you left from Grand Judea to Grand Bassa County, John Bianyobli Kanga Lawrence, and you say you're going to win, and it's one way. They flock you in Grand Judea. Oh, there you go.
He just only his own content, and he just only his own content.
To a particular political party since 2005. And when it rains, every year it rains, you can't go anywhere. They refuse to do any kind of major development in your county. But yet still you give me a vote for
so Grand Judea move back. Okay.
No.
They beat you. The man he didn't even deliver his content to the guy he support. Then he can't sit down here and want to be talking Soviet. Gentlemen, let's wrap up. Samson Tour is a complete mess. Okay, guys, I want to thank you so much. And of course, to all our valuable listeners, Monant and all of Fred, and for those of you, Gloria, for those of you tuning in for the first time, to Richard, James, we want to thank all of you here. Look, the problem in Liberia is not a one-person problem. It's a national problem. And I think we must endeavor to make national government work. We must talk to our government. They will have to listen to us because They are the one that represent or whether we voted for or against. Or we are calling on for this network to conduct ourselves with civility because that's part of that should be the game. That should be the game plan. Because it's biblical that we must respect our leaders and we must be bold to them. But it is unfortunate we have a lot of sycophants around the president. And the president, I think he needs to open his eye. That I hope there will be a serious lesson learned. But with this sort of the thing I used to do and I'm not to do, this one here, the thing I used to do. Oh my goodness. Look, Zalo, if there was a mass choir constituted for CDC, will you put a gun to go sing to be part of their choir?
Yes.
That would be disastrous. I got no skills. I got no ability. My hat goes to the president.
I know. Unless it bring a seminar, what they say you can't do calculus, then I know Professor Zalo.
Yeah.
No, I got no ability in that area.
Yeah, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here. Let's keep talking. Hopefully, we want a better day for Liberia. I should be hosting the city mayor of Rhode Island, of my city, Port Harcourt here. The invitation is out there, and I'm trying to expand that beyond that because this virus, the administration of this vaccine here is very, very much essential. It's very much important. We need to know a lot, especially for the minority. And it was good when I placed a court. They were very happy. They just schedule and be it 10 or 15 minutes. The city mayor of Port Harcourt and try to reach out with Providence as well and go beyond these predominantly minority cities, even the Philadelphia, Georgias, and all of those people. I'm curious, the disseminations of this vaccines, how you're going to reach out to. We need to know more of it, not just in as much we want something. We need to have a conversation about that. And part of that is to also involve with what is happening in this place here. I'm living here, like very second, first thing first, I'm here to make sure my own safety and everything is here. And then that's how we can make our presence felt within the political systems of this country. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking your time off this Sunday evening to be here. This is going to be another hectic week coming here, and we hope to have more conversation. Thank you guys so much and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, folks, to all our listeners and viewers, I want to thank you so much. As usual, I'm Alfonso so thank you for granting another excuse to take a break after the hectic and senatorial by-elections in Liberia. The book is there to try to get that book, and you can read it for yourself. In the midst of that, songwriters and the veterans gospel artists say we have a hell of a God, and that's Ambassador Adam Carvin. We are come a long way from the war to where we are. It's because we have a hell of a God, right?
When I look back and I think things over and over. When I look back over the years and I think things over and over, I can truly say that I've been blessed. I can truly say that God is good. And when I say level, I mean He's too marvelous. Again, I say level, I mean He's too baffling. Then I say level, I mean He's too much. I said I so hell I got things
I want to thank Mr. Emmanuel Court, Winner Kait, Arion Del Dios, and Ambassador Jabates Unions, Dennis Brooks, Christian Taboe, of course, our valuable and always that listener, Monant, I played right here to my own ocean state of Rhode Island. Thank you so much, Frahina, and all of you beautiful people. Of course, our own followers, talking about Abu. Bebeto Fofana and what's up, moment, and Fenning Gloriot, and all of you, Orator James. I want to thank you, Daniel Framer, and all of you good people to go in Bridge, Fatu to Wallabat, and all of you beautiful people, your time, Erwin Gillard, Hawa, Kellyman, Elijah Tawia. Thank you so much. If you have not subscribed to the Liberia Public Radio channel, just go on the YouTube, go on the Facebook page, be a follower. Subscribe, get an alert. We always receive, tell us, give us, a feedback as to how we can improve. Lenium Dennis, thank you so much for joining. Matthew, of course, our valuable contributor who helps to sustain this night word. I'm talking about Mikey Mana, but he's a leper business, he's something to business, and that way he and myself want to fall apart. Asha Sharif, TVK Kamanda, and Samuka Dolly as well. All of you beautiful people, to Rebecca, Frank, Bentu, Grace, Lydia, Tab Mohammed, Musa, all of you guys, man. There's no way that I can leave you out of this whole thing here. Without you, we can't get the work of this network here. So we want to thank you so much. We keep having the conversations of Liberia in a civil context. That's why it's needed. The oppositions, all of this, all of the people are the same people. I'm telling you, I kept saying this. And all these people that will now send to the upper house of government again, you will see after 2, 3, 4 days, their language, their tone, some of them now, or it will change. So we have to properly vet these people that we are entrusting with state power. 9 years. Think about it. They're going there for 9 years. Do you think any of them have the guts, even if they went wrong, to say, I'm going to resign? No way. They dare not, they therefore go until death. We don't want them to die. Our population has already decreased as a result of the civil war. So we do not want them to. But all we are saying, even being the opposition, does not mean everything must go against the government. Engage the government. And now we're going to be going out vigorously with the need to come up with a plan. It's not just talking, and like some kind of little pepper boy from Grand Gita, from Samson Totan. We want action plan as to how they're going to do it. Draw out an action plan and submit it and see what our government is not even going to act. The whole year was horrible. It was terrible. So at times here, let's be honest, Nancy Pelosi can sit down with Kuku Hair Mitch McConnell sometime and sit and talk and arrive at something. But when will we see Nyomble Kanga Lawrence, Darius Delon, and Joseph, Tomo Fala, Akaras Gray? When would these people sit one day, put aside politics and say, you know what? Liberian people, whether I'm a seditions, I'm a Liberty Party, I'm a Unity Party people, they elected us to have a piece of job done. When will they begin to share notes of their policies, of their agenda, and put aside politics? They don't. And I know it will add more to it with this kind of going election now. I know they will be passing by one another Capitol Hill there, like as if they are not Liberians. And we who sit on these podcasts, people who support the government, support the opposition, you need to set that tone for that sort of good working relationship to exist. If you think you opposition, they think this win here, that's the end of it, and you start acting crazy, and you think you're going to go there and get away with it, some of us will come at you. You need to tell us as to how you're going to do it differently. You need to unveil your agenda. And it is time to be a little bit pragmatic with your policy. We want a policies-oriented, driven agenda now. I even want to know, Dr. Weir has declared he's going to be contesting. I don't know. Anything can change. Politics is there's a lot of uncertainty. Now the by-election is, we have gone with it. So who is going to be on top of the ticket for the coalition? Because I want to know their policy. I want to know your agenda. I want to know what you bring into the table. I want to know how you're going to navigate. I want to know how you're going to create job opportunity. I want to know how you're going to downsize government, how you're going to condense to save costs so that people will be able to get job. What is the difference? You have Ministry of Rural Development, you have this, some of these people, some of these ministry that needs to be condensed and give them one function. Exactly. That's why you're supposed to be doing that. That's how you do to, you try to condense, minimize the size of government. I want to know all of these 500 grain burial, black burial people, solidarity brigade from the CPP, COP, or whatever. Are they bringing them into government, like what the CDC did? Is there some sort of political payback for which they are having these people behind them? I want to know that. How are they going to manage that? I want to know that. I want them to start addressing the economic problems of Liberia in black and white, not just only sit down before Spoon TV, LPR, or hot something. No, make it black and white so we can hold you to it. That's exactly what I want us to do. Until then, folks, every good thing must come to an end. I want to thank you so much for being part of today's program. As usual, I'm Alfonso Z and so of the Liberia Public Radio and LPR TV. Have a pleasant evening.
Hallelujah to my Jesus. I bow before the throne. When I look at all the wonder and I see all the creation, the beauty of the universe, you never change. You never lie. You never change. You never change. Hallelujah to my Jesus. Hallelujah. 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 The highest praise. Hallelujah. Give him the highest praise. Hallelujah. Give him the highest praise. Hey, I'm not afraid, Jehovah. I'm not Jehovah. Pick this up of prison. I'm not prison. Pick this up everything. The worshiping. Oh, you can rely. I will press this way. I'm here to press my candle because he came to life. Come celebrate, come to play, come to worship him. He deserves the praise. Hallelujah, give him the higher praise. Hallelujah, give him the higher praise. Hallelujah, hallelujah, the highest praise. Hallelujah, give him the highest praise. Hallelujah, give him the highest praise. Ooh, hallelujah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Love is all we need to make it see. This is the time to come together. Keep Liberia safe forever. So open up your heart, let the unity begin. Love is all we need to make it stand. Let's cultivate one another. Learn to live together as brothers and sisters. Without togetherness, we won't have a peace of mind. Unify. unify and have a peaceful home. Sweet Liberia, when the